Yo, editor BBoySonicX here. Howdy. Just warning you guys ahead of time, there's quite a bit of spoilers in this podcast. I will do my best to put spoiler warning text throughout the video, but just giving you the warning ahead of time. A lot of spoilers. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the inaugural first episode of the Men of Destiny podcast. This is your first host, Hyaurun, with my co-host over here, your Base.
What's up, guys? You might have seen me in the Gaia-verse. Probably not.
And the other boy, Galdred.
This is Galdred. You did not see me in the Gaia-verse at all.
Fucking lame-o.
Was not in that.
You're, what's that other game called?
Adventure Quest?
No.
I was in that.
Close. Maple Story.
Oh, no, it was
One
not
of
in
those.
No, he's a RuneScape boy.
Oh,
okay.
no.
Nice. But, what are we doing here today?
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about how anime has been this year, because we all know that thanks to the big C out there that
Rona.
The virus.
that, this was a great year to catch up on anime when there weren't any anime coming out.
But wait, who are we?
So we're just a bunch of guys who who have wanted to talk about anime for quite a while now, give our opinions and reviews on specific things.
In other words, we're IRL friends who have opinions, not exactly your run-of-the-mill anti-tubers, so what you see is what you get, or rather, what you hear is what you get.
Yeah, and I will certainly say this too, for we really don't pay too much attention to like the broader audience, or like to what most people are saying about shows and stuff like that. Well, I should say two of us don't really pay that much attention. I know a little bit here and there, but Galdridge probably pays the least attention to the broader audience.
Like, not at all.
Whereas Base over here pretty much knows exactly what you guys have been saying.
So you're going to get a nice range of, like, really in-depth with, like, studios and productions and all that. And then you're just going to get someone like myself who was just like, oh, that looks good. I'm just going to watch it. And that's it.
And really, this is probably the exception episode, because beginning of this year has been obviously understated, kind of crazy. So this first episode might not be the most detailed, but as time goes on, we'll get more and more into it and more ranty, and that's what timestamps are for.
Absolutely.
And another reason for that too is just because we're going to be going over the entire year up to this point. Sure, like spring and summer technically kind of blended into each other because of all the delays and such.
And really by entire year, just what we picked out.
Yeah.
But from here on out, more than likely, at least I will, try to mention something about like each show that comes out, whether or not I finished it or not. But we'll get more and more detailed. But with that out of the way,
let's go ahead and start with the spring season.
Isn't winter first?
Isn't winter first?
Yeah, winter first. Well, there's
To
our editor, B-Boy, can you add in a bruh? Mark that down. I need a bruh.
Hey, first,
winter.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead.
First episode, guys. Stuff's not going to be 100%, but we're going to do our absolute best.
What'd you watch?
So something pretty popular that had a great little kerfuffle there at the beginning with Funimation, Interspecies Reviewers.
That show is notorious.
Here's the real question. Where did you watch it on?
So I watched it on the notorious website, the Hub.
Just say Pornhub, bro.
Just say Pornhub. It's all good. We all know.
That's what I wanted to know. You pass.
Like, I tried. Like, I got into it pretty late. Like, I saw all the memes and shit happening around, and I was just like, oh, cool, I'll watch it on, like, Verve or Funimation, and then all the stuff I'm pretty sure you want to talk about Hyaurun with their BS about it, and it just eventually led us to Pornhub.
Yeah, so I don't know if everyone who's listening to this knows, and I'd be kind of surprised if most people didn't know this already, but Funimation had Interspecies Reviewers on there for a little while.
I think the first 3 episodes?
Yeah.
1 to 3 episodes.
Yeah, and immediately they regretted their decision.
They didn't really do the research. Because, the name sounds so, unassuming. And it's like, sure, let's watch this, what's that one anime about the girls who are all comfy and they camp a lot?
Oh, Yudu Camp.
Yeah, they're probably like,
camp.
Yuru Camp?
Yeah, they were probably like, yeah, this is probably going to be something
It's
like
like that,
Yudu
but
Camp.
they're going to research little bugs.
Oh, little bugs.
And then they found out what the species was.
Yep.
It was cock.
It was cock. And how they were going to review them.
Well, I mean, instead of cock, they were trying to review boobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So what did we think?
I thought just the amount of stuff happening because of it was hilarious. Just all the memes and stuff. I didn't actually get around to watching it. I actually did something I usually don't do, and I read the manga first just to like compare. And the manga is nothing compared to the actual anime. The manga is very tame. Like, it doesn't really show much compared to the anime, where obviously you have to go to freaking Pornhub just to watch it at all. So that was pretty interesting, but I didn't finish it at all or catch up or whatever, so not really too much into it.
I definitely think it was worth the hype. It was funny. It was entertaining.
I think its notoriety made it that much of a gem to watch. Just knowing how much it pissed off Funimation and how like no one else was willing to take it from there on out. Because I mean, obviously you had to watch it on like porn sites or Kiss Anime, big rip, by the way. No, really, fuck Kiss Anime. We'll get to that later.
Yeah,
but
some other time.
It's a fun watch. Not really much to go off of other than like how horny did it make you guys? But at the very least, it was a bit more creative about it essentially being like pseudo porn.
It definitely did not pretend to be something else, which was definitely something that we don't get a lot with ecchi. Should I call it ecchi? I mean, it's borderline, right?
It's pretty much
like
90...
Major League ecchi. It's
Yeah.
like it's right there. It's still in the farm link, so it's ready to go major.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just needs one more good game to get on up to the majors.
So another anime that had a lot of hype during.
Wait,
the winter
before we
time.
switch, which species would you want to interview?
Ooh.
Or rather research? Elf girls, for sure.
Yeah, I would have to.
Dude,
go
that
elf
was
girls too,
pretty
yeah.
funny how
I'll have
like
to go
the
with
elf dude
girl.
is like, why do you like that tells this human bro? Why do you like elf girl so much? She's like 800. He's like, I don't give a fuck. She looks like 25. That's perfect. He's like, no, I love this 80-year-old human. He's like, that's disgusting. No. He's like, but she's 80. It's like, yeah, to us, that's a no zone.
No, that's kind of hot, and obviously the ears,
And then
the sweet supple ears,
like,
nice and long. For me, anyways,
Yeah.
IMO.
but yeah, probably from all the species they have reviews, yeah, probably just elf would be the best one. Well, for us
I
humans,
thought you
I
might have
guess
said like succubi because that's kind of edgy.
that's very true. I too tend to be the edgelord, but I don't know. I don't want to die. I don't want to get my life force drained too much, so go with the safe route.
Nah, bro, it's totally worth getting the life
Law of
force drained
equivalent
out of you.
exchange. For
Hey,
each
have
massive
the
nut,
best
you gotta
pleasure
give a
of my
massive
life,
chunk of your life.
and 10 years off of my life. I'm good.
That's hot.
I mean, you just keep going until there's nothing
And
left.
then,
bro.
Hyoran, what was your answer?
I also went with the elves.
They won the.
This is now an elf podcast,
Oh,
by
no.
the way.
If you read the manga, they had a popularity of all the species they reviewed, and elf was the clear winner. So
Oh, yeah.
there was that as well.
I mean, because anime always has a really nice way of like making elf girls seem so desirable.
it's very true. If we talk about older series like How Not to Summon a Demon Lord, Shura L. Greenwood, another top contender.
Oh yeah. Wait, when was that?
Huh?
When was that? When did that come out?
Sometime last year.
year.
So,
Man,
can't
I was
talk about
I
the-
was thinking like Record of Lotus Award. And you're like,
Oh, no.
anime from last year.
No.
Wait, what?
Damn. The next series for winner?
Oh yeah, so like I guess we can move on.
Basically, TLDR, Horny the Anime. It's funny. Watch it if you're just thinking.
Yeah.
So the next show we were going to talk about is another big show that came out during that time, and that would be Tower of God.
If you're watching on DC, it's Tower of Zod.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry. that was
So,
dumb.
you guys have way more experience with manhwa. I didn't even know what that word
Well-
was until that happened.
Well, technically, it's considered. I mean, yeah, it's technically a manhwa.
It's a
but
manhwa.
yeah, it's. But,
But
the,
you'll
the
hear-
category that it's
you'll
classified under
you'll
is
hear
like
the term
webtoon.
like webtoon because it's on webtoons.
Yeah. So
Or if you watch like, or if you read
webcomic,
the like, yeah, webcomic or what's those other sites popping up now? Where like,
like
you pay
Tabbytoon.
Tumic,
Yeah.
TLDR Korean porn manga that takes forever. I know because I read most of them.
he knows. Trust me.
But yeah,
First
Tower.
episode on the horny one. Go on.
Yeah, but Tower of God, all right? So, I've been reading Tower of God for since
End of high school.
Yeah, end of high school. So
Pretty much the time it came
came
out.
out. So that was probably like what 2011, 2012, right around that era.
Maybe a little
area right
after.
there.
Yeah,
a little bit, maybe a little bit earlier than that.
I could look that up. But what'd you think of it?
So I liked it. The complaints that I've heard that there are parts missing, I can totally understand that. And there's another show that we'll talk about later that's out right now that
I think it's kind of a similar symptom of the other show, which,
Yeah.
by the way, God of Highschool.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Crunchyroll's just trying to
they're just trying to get
run
it
with
out.
the steam
Yeah.
of this deal that's pretty... I think it's pretty big.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal, and
Not even just for like Korean manga or manhwa, just anime production in general.
the fact that now that they're doing things outside of just like homemade Japanese things and converting them into anime or Japanese anime is kind of a big deal. And the thing is, with Tower of God, it only had 12 episodes, right? It didn't have a lot, so like the amount of story that they had to put in there, I can understand why they kind of like, shifted things around a little bit, kind of cut a couple like fewer, I don't want to say unimportant scenes, but scenes that a bit of the fluff out. I can understand why they did that because they're just so limited, right? Like there's not much they can do with that, with the amount of episodes they have.
And I guess I'll confess one of my many sins that will be here for the Anime Pope. I guess out of the quote unquote manhwa like trinity, Tower of God probably had my least amount of intention, so I didn't necessarily have the biggest expectations going into this.
Yeah, and like I don't blame you either. Tower of God is really long, like really, really long. It's if for any of you who don't know, Tower of God's basically like the One Piece for Korean webcomics, right? Like it's just been going. It hasn't been going as long as One Piece, but as it's going now, it's probably gonna get there at some point. If for any of you who've read it, you probably know what I'm talking about because the amount of time it takes between major plot points, there's just an exorbitant amount of time between each of them, and considering the format of webtoons, like there's not much you can do to really condense that well in a smaller episode format like that. And I'm hoping that in the future, we're seeing how well Tower of God's done, and as well as God of Highschool, which we'll talk about later when we get to the summer anime. Seeing how well they've done, I'm hoping that the future seasons or whatever they decide to do with them will, get a bit more lame to them,
Yeah, they just got to prove that. Well, obviously, they've already kind of proved that the hype is real. And as someone who didn't read webcomics or manhwa at all, like watching Tower of God, I know from you guys in our mutual friends that the hype was there. Like, a bunch in our group chats, like people were like, "Oh shit, it's coming!" Like, hopefully it's good because there was another webcomic / manhwa that was an anime adaptation a long time ago that you guys brought up.
Yes.
That wasn't so good, apparently.
No bliss.
We'll get to that.
Yeah,
at the
we'll
very,
talk
very
about
end.
that
So-
later. Since
So yeah, there was a lot of hope of like, please make this work and let it become a thing. And so far, I think it's been going pretty good. In terms of my opinions, I don't know. I felt it was kind of slow at first for me. I don't know. I felt like something was missing. But then like the last couple episodes, I was just like, okay, now we're getting to the meat of it. And then it ended for the season. And I said, bitch. It's like we were just getting somewhere really interesting. But, hopefully they do another season. We can go from there.
I think it'll get another season.
I hope so. I mean,
I'm pretty sure. I think just with this and God of Highschool,
the popularity's there.
Yeah, the popularity is there. The demand is there.
Mm-hmm. So,
and
hopefully soon.
And speaking of shows with new seasons, let's talk about Haikyu.
To the top. So, I'm just going to say right off the bat, Base doesn't like sports anime, really, unless they involve hot females. So,
And then this isn't counting motorsports or combat sports because those are automatically based.
so
I didn't watch this.
So only Hyaron and myself watched it. It was a fine continuation. It was good finally seeing some like progression, like he's actually learning tech from that training camp he went to, even though he wasn't supposed to. So that was good. And then just obviously, actually next season supposed to be the continuation.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the summary of Haikyu's stuff. So if you've watched Haikyu before, you know that it's about, if you've watched Haikyu, you know how popular it is, right? So it's and it's about
Going to
a
the
little
top.
yeah.
So they get to the top.
A short little orange-haired boy named Shoyo Hinata who's trying to become the best volleyball player out there. And it's like, and so far in this season, it was I've read the manga, so.
And I didn't.
Yeah,
So-
and Galdrick didn't. So, like, my perspective and his perspective are a little bit different. Not too different, but I liked how they adapted this season, considering that the next season is going to cover one of the. It's a great setup season, is
Okay.
what this was. Getting to see them go through, getting to see Kageyama go through the All-Star training.
Yeah.
That was pretty sweet.
How he like got his edge back, basically.
Yeah, because like he like part of his character arc is that he's gotten really into the whole teamwork thing, and when he went to go play with the All Stars, they were just like, "Hey, you can push us a little bit," and he's just kind of like,
He's like, oh no, it's okay.
"Hey,
I'm gonna make sure everyone's happy and okay.
yeah," and so now he's kind of gained his edge back from his rivalry with Hinata before the start, I guess is the best way to put it. And Hinata himself has also kind of pushed himself, considering he wasn't drafted for like the All-Star team, whatever. And so seeing that and now seeing them play nationals is pretty interesting. And I'm hoping that they continues the hype, especially considering the last season before this when they played Shiratorizawa was sweet. It was great. Yeah.
That was a whole season to itself. And
Yeah.
it was well done. I thought it would be dragged on too long, but it was really well done.
Yeah.
And also just seeing all the other rival schools at nationals, like there's a lot of interesting matchups that I hope to see.
And I will say, of recent sports anime, Haikyu does a pretty good job of its pacing and its characters.
Unlike some others on this list.
I mean, we can talk about that one next if you'd like to.
Which one would that
Is
be?
it-
But go on, sorry.
Oh, dang it. I forgot that was last year. Whatever. Soda. It's slow. It's too damn slow. It's still continuing. The first game was like a practice game, and there was like 6 episodes, which they could have done in one. It's just too slow. But
And just to let the viewers know, Ahiru no Sora is a basketball anime. And it's also got like the same sort of premise as Haikyu, where it's a short kid trying to play
Trying to be the best
sport,
b-baller.
yeah, trying to play a sport for tall people, and his struggles through that. But I'll definitely say that the characters aren't nearly as endearing as they are in Haikyu, and the development is definitely a lot slower, and the pacing's terrible.
It's probably the worst pacing I've ever seen in a sports anime.
And that's
Like, I get to a point where I start skimming because I'm like, all right, what happens this episode? Oh, maybe like they learned like some tech a little bit, and then they try to do it, but then they failed, and that's it. That's 24 minutes down the drain. I'll never get back. Anyways, that's some other dumb stuff. What else on here? Next,
Let's see. I would say it's like, and then there's one winter anime that Galdred over here watched that we didn't watch.
Which is that one?
that was Seton Academy. Join the pack. It was basically something you can turn your brain off. Basically, it's a world where like humans and animals coexist, and like the animals, if they're a male, they look just like the animal, but they're bipedal, and if they're a female, they basically just get like minor characteristics, like they get the ears and like a tail, and you're just like, all right, whatever. Basically, the only high school you can get into is a high school where animals and humans coexist, and he hates animals with a passion so much, but he has to deal with it. And then eventually he meets the main female lead, who is like this little fox, but she oddly enough, she's too short for her race, and she wants to be the boss of her own pack, but like let multiple animals join the pack instead of it being like all wolves. So it's like it's the MC who's a human, and then they meet the human girl that he's infatuated with, but won't return his feelings, obviously. And then you get like a sloth, a panda, a koala, a cat, and some other like side characters. But it was just something to turn your brain off and watch it. Nothing really. It's just shenanigans, harem shenanigans, even though it's not really any romance. Well, the wolf chick likes him a lot, but whatever, because he helped her out, but he hates animals, so he's like annoyed all the time. she's just like, I just want to lick you, and he like smacks the shit out of her with like a book. So it's just those kind of shenanigans. It was just a nice thing to watch, turn my brain off that. So when I watch anime, I typically watch anime like that first, like get myself in the mood, and then I get into like the real heavy hitters later. So that was like my lead off anime for the season.
Yeah, so were there any anime like that for you guys this season where like you just kind of watched that one first? Actually, like Interspecies Reviewers was kind of that my anime for the winter season, where like I watched that one first just because it was like the most relaxing, I guess, because of how funny it was half the time.
I don't know. Probably wasn't. I'll double check, but I don't think it was for winter. But it was definitely Tamayomi, which was the all girls baseball anime. I think it was only Funimation.
Yeah, it was.
That was a pretty comfy watch, and ironically enough, it was a sports.
But like I said,
anime.
there's cute girls in it.
But it was cute girls
you're
do.
okay with
you know,
that?
it's another cute girls do stuff show, kind of like in the vein of K-On! Or Lucky Star. You know,
Yeah.
the typical.
You know what you sign up for, and you're
Yeah.
gonna get in space.
But at least in this one, there was a bit more like inner workings of like the baseball metagame. They talked about like the importance of like a relief pitcher,
Relief pitcher,
and
yep.
just certain players, different percentages of like where they're going to hit. Like this player is going to hit down center field more often than not, or like you know the oddities of like a right-handed person going against a left-handed pitcher,
Yep.
stuff like that. So while it was like kind of cutesy and comfy, it was still kind of like, oh yeah, I like that because I was in baseball.
I'm about to say, I also
And-
played baseball for 10 years, so that'd be a pretty interesting watch. I should get around to that.
That was kind of like my go-to show. It was the anime soul food,
There you go.
but with a nice little cute bow tie on the top.
Oh. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
another. Sorry, I was gonna take the next one. Another one I watched in the winter. I don't know. It looks like none of you guys watched either. It was Welcome to Demon School, Iruma-kun.
I read the manga for that one.
Oh, okay.
I saw that one of the YouTubers I follow, Yang. Apparently, he was an extra voice in there.
Really?
That's the only thing I really know about it. Yeah.
That was a very like. I told Hyaron here. I just felt nostalgic.
It's very wholesome.
Like watching it, it was just like synopsis. There's this poor kid Inuma, and his parents just like don't care about him, and they just send him to odd jobs to get money. So he's on like a fucking Alaskan fishing boat, like trying to survive, and then like all his coworkers are like, "All right, good luck later," and they leave, and he's like surrounded by frozen fish, and he's like, and then the ship kind of like gets hit by a wave, and he's gonna die, but all of a sudden this demon from another world, one of the grand demons, like takes him to the demon world and basically like forcefully adopts him as his grandson and just like adores him, like showers him with gifts and love and compassion. So at first, Inuma, he's a scaredy cat. He's one of those typical like fragile, like everything scares me. But he has like this really amazing talent where he's like the best dodger in the world. Like anything that's like harmful coming his way, he can dodge it 100% of the time. So he's just losing his mind. Like, oh, I can't be in this world. I'm gonna get like destroyed. Like once I'm a human, don't demons eat humans? And he's like, yeah, but you know, we're just gonna say you're a demon. It's fine. He's like, well, I don't have any characteristics. You know, it's fine. Just here's this ring. You're good. And so then the grandpa enrolls him into demon school, and then shenanigans, basically.
It's definitely one that I've been meaning to watch because it's just very wholesome and it's very fun, and it's definitely one of those anime that like again it's one of those ones you just kind of watch to unwind, right?
Oh, the opening also slaps. I have it in my head right now, which I don't think I could sing for obvious reasons, but it was a slapper. I would play it just by itself, and like it just felt like you were a kid again. You woke up, you know, Saturday morning or whatever, and like just watching your nice cartoons. It was a good watch.
Is there a 4Kids dub of this?
I prayed God not.
I think that's
I
what Yang's in.
I think the dub was handled correctly, not in the 4Kids vein.
Oh, boo.
See, overall, I don't think we watched that many winter anime, honestly, of all the things that came out.
Yeah, looking at our list, like, yeah, I don't think there was much.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll go back into like a bonus episode and be like, oh, here's the stuff we forgot.
Like there were a lot of winter anime. I mean, at that time, you know, the pandemic was kind of it was starting, right? It was starting, you know, you still didn't really have like a lot of time to watch stuff, and we kind of just went with like a handful of things that just interested us at the time. one of the anime that I kind of regret not watching when they first came out during that time, and Base will probably agree with me, was Hands Off Eizouken.
Oh my god.
And,
Yes.
Uh,
You also had a swing and a miss this season, and this was definitely his hit.
yeah, and
Long story short, 3 girls in this kind of weird, layered, really designed town that like has all their stuff in their high school.
it's just a great show about imagination.
Basically that,
Yeah,
and kind of a love letter to the actual process of animation, which is really cool because they like obviously you could tell Yuasa really loves and has this endearment for Ghibli, because like the first opening scene outside like after the introductory part, I'm forgetting the names. Who's the little girl with the hat? I just watched
I haven't watched it, so I can't help
Asakusa,
here.
yeah. She drags her friend and like, oh, look at the way the ship is coming through to like create a sense of scale, or look at the way the other little ship is hovering and having the little boy run across to kind of create this sense of speed. And it's obviously like an homage, a little mini homage to like Castle in the Sky.
Mm-hmm.
And so they create a club counter to that anime club to actually make one themselves, and then they just get lost in their own sense of imagination.
Let's close out the winter season. So, honestly,
In short, Eizouken is great. It's about the love of animation, and kind of like it's almost the way I would describe it, and it's not even necessarily accurate. It's kind of like Shirabaku's cute little sister, because while
I can see that.
Shirabaku was like about the act and the process of making anime, this is more so like how someone would go from just sketching in their notebook to like making something come about. I would go more in depth, but since I was the only one that watched it, maybe some other time, watch it. It's great. There's a reason why everyone's talking about it. And I think it's based on a manga that's still ongoing, if I remember correctly. Read that too.
all right, and so that's pretty much it for this section. I mean, winter was kind of bare overall, like, or at least for us, right? And I'm not saying that there were the rest of the shows during winter were bad. It's just that we didn't watch any of them, and these were the choices that we made when the season was going on.
And from here on out, we'll be a lot more thorough.
Yeah, we'll be a lot more thorough, and we'll actually go through and watch almost every show during the season.
Yeah, good or bad. That's what we're here for, so you don't have to watch it.
Yeah.
What's next?
And so next up, we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about Gleipnir. You know, a show that had quite a bit of.
I meant to watch this, so you guys will have to fill me in.
We're on the spring area.
Yeah,
now?
we're talking about some of the spring shows.
Whoo, Gleipnir. That was I'll say immediately that watching the opening, I got hard Mirai Nikki vibes, and that was my shit back in high school. I was super into Mirai Nikki.
Was it like time travel? Well, not time travel based per se.
What, Gleipnir or Mirai Nikki?
I mean, because I'm trying to remember. Mirai Nikki was like...
It was Future Diary, so
Yeah,
basically
yeah,
there was a survival game and people had different diaries. And
Yeah. I've watched a bit of the show. I'm saying, like, did it have some of the same premises?
Oh, just the music and the...
The atmosphere.
edge.
The atmosphere
Yeah.
is very similar. So,
Okay.
like, the big thing about Gleipnir was that, like, it was very edgy, right? Like, that was the whole thing behind it, was that it was very edgy in that, in the first episode, spoilers, by the way, in the first episode, right, the dude just goes up to the main female lead, and he just starts sniffing her. And, like, the worst possible way you can imagine the word sniff.
Well, we should also give context that he's not in the right state of mind at that time.
Yeah, and okay, so I guess the summary for Gleipnir is that the main character turns into this giant costumed mascot monster thing, and the point of Gleipnir is that he's trying to figure out why that's happening to him.
So there's this basically another thing is like there is these in this town, there are in the forest, there's these coins. They're literally just coins. And if you take it and you go to a certain place, there's a person that will take your coin in exchange for something you want, basically. So people wish for like power or want to be faster or whatever. So you basically have this competition like kind of going on where people want to collect all the coins, because if they get all the coins, they were promised a wish. And so different people go about it in different ways. Some, team up in a group because they don't have necessarily the best powers, and some just
Yeah,
go
like
like
the
on
first
full
girl.
yeah, and some just go like full murder squad of just like this is our coin hunting turf, and we'll kill anyone that gets in.
And the surprising amount of controversy behind that at first, because like the main female lead, I can't remember. Also, by the way, I can't remember any of their names because while watching the series, like I couldn't care less about most of the characters. They're all rather bland. The main character was pretty boring, generic, like scared boy who, you know, it's like who doesn't know what he's doing. He's just kind of going along for the ride at that point. I mean, he does develop quite a bit later, and he does, you know, grow a pair, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the beginning, you know, he's very bland, very boring, and the main female lead
The exact opposite.
yeah, is the exact opposite. She's this crazy, psychotic girl who's just like willing to do whatever it takes to kill her sister, and the whole reason for that is because her sister murdered their parents, and so she's using the kid that could turn into this monster costume in order to find her sister and murder her. And like that's basically the premise of like the first half of the series, or at least this what I'm gonna assume is like the first season.
Yeah,
Because-
I kind of peeked in the manga, and it goes on, of course, but I don't know if it'll get a second season or not.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like
Like I don't think it was anything special. People were comparing it to like Elfen Lied and other
which
things like that.
they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
And I was like, this isn't nearly that gruesome.
They just see like some blood and a little bit of gore, and they're like, "Oh my god!" But no, it was nowhere near as bad as Elfen Lied.
I think the most gruesome part was probably when he blew that track girl's brains out at the beginning.
Yeah, that was
probably the most gruesome part.
yeah, and that yeah, whatever. It wasn't.
And
nothing.
after that, like it's like the best we'll get is a heavy discretion shot, right? It's like, oh man, he capped them in the head, but we didn't see it this time. So
But yeah, nothing special. Just the inner edgelord me. I was like, I'll watch it. Chill. Like it had me interested enough to keep watching and keep tuning in every week. But
it certainly wasn't as it's not as gory or gruesome or like horrifying as people put it. I guess like another thing that really put it out there too is the way she wears him, because his insides are like actual like human, like they look like human guts.
yeah,
or,
he looks like he's
intestines,
in like
yeah.
like I said, a mascot costume, but like he has a zipper on his back and she just zips it down. It's just like meat, like
Yeah.
his innards, and like she gets in him, and it's kind of
gross
weird.
looking
Yeah,
is the best
so-
way to put it. But
So I feel like that's what the most notorious part of it, where that's the thing that everyone knows about this series, is how she gets in and like controls him basically.
and even that to me was kind of like sure. you know like,
I could picture a lot of people liking the main female for like
waifu
Dojin,
reasons.
Dojin
I guess,
reasons, you know, like good looking character, and she's very crazy, and people like that a lot. So
yeah, and overall, it does give very heavy like Mirai Nikki vibes, right? Because like even like the powers, like sure the future diaries are different, and like they give you different ways of telling like the future, right? Whereas here in Gleipnir, they gain their powers based off of what they wish for. So for instance, I'm gonna go back to like the very first, I guess quote unquote person that they fought, right? Like she wished to be like the fastest track runner on her track team, and so what it did was it gave her like scaly lizard leg things.
What the fuck?
yeah, basically.
She didn't become like a cheetah.
Yeah, she didn't become like a cheetah or anything like that. For some reason, they're like
Man,
lizard.
I really just want to
legs.
run fast. Okay, bitch, become a reptilian.
Yeah, pretty much.
But
Jeez.
so yeah, that was definitely interesting enough, but nothing spectacular. A decent watch.
What's
and-
next?
And then I guess we could talk about. So as we all know too, spring was that season where everything got pushed back. So
I think
like,
the biggest catastrophe regarding anime was not being able to see the Digimon movie in theaters.
oh,
we were so close.
Yeah, that's true.
I know that it came out overseas. I know because a few of my friends in Australia got to see it.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh boy, I'm next, and then I wasn't.
yeah. So we're based in the States, right? And the Digimon movie is gonna come out March like 24th or some date like that. 24th to 27th, somewhere around there.
Then
And well,
everything
and
got
then
closed.
the Rona hit, and that didn't happen because all of our movie theaters closed, and we had already bought our tickets. Well, I had bought our tickets.
I was
already,
about to, and the next day I was like, "No, you."
Yep, and they refunded all of them. At least, like we did get refunds.
I think theaters are still closed for the most part. It's kind of weird. It really depends because I've had friends who've already seen the newest Christopher Nolan movie, Tenet.
Tenet, yeah, and
They saw that
stuff
and
like
there was-
New Mutants as well. Some people watched
Which-
that already.
At some point, we got to have like a Marvel, DC, whatever
I will definitely talk
American Freeaboo
Free
manga.
of you. But
Very, very long story short, I've heard wild things about that movie.
about that. Yeah, so
so multiple things got pushed
yeah,
back.
a lot of things got pushed back, and
This
we're
is
gonna
where things just came to a halt.
we're gonna talk about those shows in detail when we talk about the summer shows, but we'll talk very briefly about the ones that were pushed back, like the new Digimon, right? But it's which is moving at a breakneck pace.
Breakneck speed.
Yeah, it's got 66 confirmed episodes.
And it's only on like episode, not even 20.
Yeah, and the series is moving very, very fast. Even within those first 3 episodes, they were eye-catching.
I think they're already, like, within the first few, they were already at, like, our war game.
Yeah, they basically simulate it. For those of you who don't know, our war game is... so when the Digimon movie came out in the West, right, it was 3 movies, like, basically compiled into one.
It worked really well.
Yeah, it worked really well, and most people probably remember it as, hey, isn't that that anime movie that had Smash Mouth in it?
Somebody that actually happened.
no.
Yeah, if you thought that Shrek had All-Star in it first, no. In fact, the Digimon movie got that honor for some reason.
Well, Shrek happened first, and then they're like, Americans like this, right?
Right, yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, and so, and they basically took that part where the big white knight dude that everyone remembers the Digimon movie for, Omnimon, right? They took that and they basically condensed it into the first 2 episodes, which I'm sure, like, for those of you who don't know a lot about Digimon or haven't watched too much of it, I'm sure that's pretty surprising to think of that, like something that was basically like their end game character, right? Like their level 99 maxed out dude showing up within the first 2 episodes is kind of crazy. Trust me, it's...
I think they pulled it off, though.
Oh yeah, for sure. They pulled it off really well. It's just insane how what they did. And going to that and stopping at the 3rd episode, right? I think that was probably like the most like...
That was a huge cock block.
Yeah, that was the huge cockblock thing because that 3rd episode was really good as well to like establish like the world and the characters and stuff like that. Only for them to be like, yeah, so we're gonna have to push this back to the summer because we don't want our voice actors contracting corona and destroying their lungs.
Yeah, because the
And-
way seiyus operate, they're all usually all in the same room, whereas like most other dubbing places, they
Yeah.
all do it in a single booth. Just
Yeah.
one, it's just them. Most of the time, they don't even ever get to see their coworkers, like, or act alongside them. So
Yep.
it made sense why. Like a lot of people are like, "Well, it already came out. Well, what can you do?"
Yeah, like I mean, it makes sense, and it's just that thanks to the Rona, right?
But
That
what did-
show and another one that was pretty heavily impacted by it too would be Food Wars.
But that eventually caught up.
Yeah.
But do you want to go? Do we want to go more in depth about Digimon or Food Wars first?
So for Digimon, we'll catch up with it again back in the summer once we talk more about the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
Because
Same with
right,
Food
'cause right now we're just kind of touching on the couple episodes that came out during that time and how they got pushed back because of it, right? Like like Food Wars. That was like a show that like everyone loves Food Wars, right?
Oh, my huge gripe with that is that the first 2 episodes that came out, if you read the manga, you know that they changed at least the order of events,
yeah.
quite drastically. So manga ends kind of shitty. The little aftermath story that they added, that extra 3 chapters, yeah, it softened the blow a bit. Still super unsatisfying. So when I saw this coming off the manga, I was thinking, oh man, they're going to change it. They know they realized how hard they got lambasted about it because no one liked it. No one liked the ending. No one liked the new character they introduced. So when they reworked that and basically skipped the actual introductory little mini arc with Soma going to the the little hot spring
Yeah.
town, and it's like,
Yeah.
where are all these towns going? And then turns out the underground chefs, the cuisine du noir, were going around like taking ownership of all these little bathhouses.
Mom and pop. Yeah.
So when they made that until like the very, very, very ending of like season 4, I was thinking, oh boy, they're going to take out what was arguably the dumbest aspect about the final arc. Nope.
It's there.
It's still there, and they went even harder with adding the blue tournament because it wasn't called that.
Yeah.
Really?
That's why I thought it was gonna be super different, and then the whole choosing of who's gonna participate that was added in too.
So quite a bit of it was different enough that I know that certain people definitely thought things were gonna change, especially when we found out it was gonna be pushed back. Right when we found out that like, okay, they're gonna push it back. It's like, oh well, I guess things are probably gonna be a little bit different here and there, and well, I guess we'll talk about that later. All right. And from there, I think those are the only shows that any of us watched during the spring that ended up being pushed back. Right?
Wasn't Fire Force in spring?
No, Fire Force was a summer show.
Oh, okay. I thought it was spring.
Yeah. And so, big show that came out during the spring that luckily wasn't pushed back would be Love is War.
Oh, Kaguya-Sama.
Season 2.
Oh, that makes me happy. It's one of the extremely few animes to make me feel like I feel warm inside watching the wholesome moments that happened last season. Like, oh my god, it's so good. And that OP also slaps.
Now, Love is War is one of those. It's just one of those few like romantic comedies that that balances both the romance and the comedy really well.
Like, it works. You see progress, and like in relationships, it's very satisfying seeing little milestones between the characters. So it is extremely well done how the characters are.
And the gags are just pulled off so well.
Like, it's one of the few shows where I've laughed, I've shed a tear, and I went, "Oh," out loud.
Yeah, and it's season 2 basically just kind of ramped up everything from season 1, right? We got a little bit of backstory on Ishigami, which he kind of showed up towards the end of the last season with very little like intro to him. He just kind of was like the sad hikikomori character, and in this season we finally got like a lot to his backstory. I know that it's like Base here hasn't really watched much of the show, but like
I've seen memes of like
Chica
dancing.
Yeah, Chica dancing.
That's another great part of it.
That's about it. And eating ramen
Yep.
against that like
Yep.
ramen master.
Yeah, and like she knew how to order it basically.
Even though she was just kind of like, "Oh, this looks good," and he's like, "She knows
like,
the
she knows
technique of mini
the tech.
ramen."
Yeah, I like gags like that. Gags like that are like what make Kaguya like unique, right? The fact that they could throw in those gags and still have more progress in like in half an episode than most other romantic comedies would in like 20 is
in a
insane.
series.
Yeah, is insane if you think about it.
They also added they introduced her name escapes me, Little Chestnut girl everyone always talks about.
Oh,
The-
Imai, right? The new girl that they invite to the
student council
after the election is over.
Yeah, like everything involved with her was also hilarious. Like her walking in at the absolute worst times of like the other character doing something that could be extremely misinterpreted, and she's like, "Man, the student council is like." They're like full of they're full of heathens. Like they're just doing all these like incredibly naughty things, which they're all just misconstrued. But it also adds to the humor as well.
And season 2 is definitely worth watching if you watch season 1. And if you haven't watched season 1 yet, go and watch it.
Just watch the whole series. It's amazing. It's fantastic. One of my favorite rom-coms of like all time. Easy.
And whenever season 3 comes out, we'll definitely
We'll be there.
Yeah, we'll be there to watch it. Yep. Another anime this season that this one I know that I was probably the only one who watched it was Listeners. it's an anime that got a bit of hype before it came out, but then after it came out, nothing really was heard about it. So listeners, is kind of like, you know how JoJo has all their stuff named after like bands and stuff like that. Imagine like that naming convention, but put into like a sort of like mecha-ish anime, right? So the whole plot of Listeners is that there are these crazy like dark monster things called like the earless, because I guess like they can't hear they can't hear like music and other things like that really well. And the whole point of it is that like these characters called, it's like the whole point is that the main characters are trying to find another character who
that can make sounds real good. I don't know. I'm trying. I guess Base and I haven't watched it, but I'm just based on what you're saying.
It's like a huge music anime where it's about this duo where one of them, she has amnesia, and they're looking for who her older brother is, and on their way they end up fighting these giant dark monster things called the earless. And in this world they don't have music either, or if they do have music, it's like something that they associate with like fighting these black monster things.
Is it one of those shows where like art is like either outlawed or it's in such a far time where art was never like preserved properly, so every time they see it, they're like, oh, what's that?
So the thing is that it's not necessarily that like it was outlawed or even that like it wasn't preserved well. It's just that the type of music, right? Like,
because they only listen to like Tchaikovsky.
Pretty much. Like, you know, they basically listen to like old school jazz or like orchestral music or things like that. But like what the like I guess like the pilots of like these giant robots and stuff use, right? Like some of them, like they're named after it's basically rock music, right? Like that's what they end up playing. And
so
so
it's like a Macross 7 kind of thing.
Sort of, yeah. Like the character that they're all looking for is named like Jimmy Stonefree. Like he's
Suspect.
You're right. And like I said, it's kind of like JoJo, where like the naming conventions, you just kind of hear their names and you're like, wow, that's really on the nose there.
There's the famous trumpeter, Kilometers Davis. Oh, Lord. That sounds both funny and a little cringe, but more so funny.
Yeah, the art style is very well done, right? Like, it's animated very well. It looks very pretty. The music's very good. And I would definitely recommend it for anyone who liked things like...
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the way you're describing it, I'm kind of getting like a Rosafon sort of feel, because there's sort of a music motif in naming.
I would say
the monsters.
I would say the difference between this and Rosafon is that like this is more of like a playful like adventure, like going on an adventure type deal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and like
not so much like
not so much like the world's going to end and we gotta deal with this type of deal.
Go to Jupiter. Oh
yeah.
wait.
But Listeners is more of like the journey of looking for like this guy who can give one of the main characters, who can give her context to like what her life was like, right? Because to them it's kind of like, you know, these monster things, they're probably gonna be around forever, but like if we can help get some of her memories back, then let's go ahead and try that. And so the whole thing is just about like their escapades through this world and how like they meet like the other like iconic characters of like the series and how they help them along in their journey. So it's kind of a huge like let's go on an adventure story, but with music and giant robots.
All right.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, and like I think the anime itself is very much something that like you would have liked, Base. So I'm kind of surprised that you haven't watched it yourself, honestly.
I heard the name, but I never saw like a preview or really anything. I don't know, just no one, like you said, no one really talked about it.
Yeah, because like it was very much so. Again, it was pretty hyped before it came out. Like, so I would say like previews around it, like in like January and stuff like that, when that come out for it, like had hyped it up quite a bit. People were pretty. It's like, and from what I remember like it having like quite a few people like mentioning it here and there, and then all of a sudden just nothing. And it started coming out, and I guess I could sort of understand. Because when you look at it, it's also got kind of like a Eureka 7 feel to it, right?
Okay.
Because it's like the boy and the girl going on an adventure together. Of course, like this is a very broad comparison, kind of like how the Razafon one was, right? But it's basically the boy and a girl go on an adventure to figure out a girl's memory and music. Yeah,
for sure. I'll give it a shot.
Admittedly, there are points where like it is kind of slow, like it does drag a bit because they try really hard to flesh out the world and flesh out the characters in the world, but it ends up just kind of like sometimes just feeling like it's dragging, right? Like so, like there's like an episode where they go to like a place called Londinium. I wonder what that place is. Yeah, it's basically like their version of London. And like they spent an entire episode on some side characters and how like the side characters and like on the side characters' lives, only for like spoilers, right? For the side characters to like disappear for the rest of this series, and you're just kind of like, wow, that seemed kind of pointless. Outside of world building, nothing else happened. And like there is like a pretty big scene at the end of the episode, but like that scene could have been like shoehorned into almost any of the other episodes, or even the episode before that, and it would have been fine.
Anything else for spring?
Another big anime that came out during spring was BNA, or Brand New Animal, by Studio Trigger, only on Netflix. And
Sounds like you got a press release right there
for a Netflix and also a Trigger show.
It was pretty boring. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
I was probably gonna say that nicer, but like there wasn't necessarily as much follow up hype. Like, yeah, people like to cosplay as the main Tanuki girl a lot, but
like, and the thing is that Tanuki girls.
Well, first, can you give us a synopsis? Because admittedly, I didn't get around to this one.
Okay, so Brand New Animal is about this young girl who one day wakes up and she is a Tanuki. And so in this world, right, there are hybrids, right, like animal-human hybrids, and then they're just normal humans. And this girl originally was just a normal human, and one day she woke up and now she was like this Tanuki human hybrid. And the thing is that like the human animal hybrids obviously are kind of like discriminated against, like as you would expect in like a show like this. And the whole setting of the anime takes place in this city that they built specifically for like the animal people, right? For the hybrids to live and to like exist.
Are they called animal people, or what do they refer to them as? Beasts,
vermin,
yeah,
scum,
they're basically
mongrels.
They're basically like the beastmen from. They're called
Galdred's pet.
Oh my god, no.
I just got a Tanuki in the house, by the way.
Oh,
yeah, they're basically just called beastmen, right?
Oh.
Yeah, they're basically just called beastmen, and the city's called like Anima City, and while the initial premise of the story is that she goes there so that she can find a way to become human again, that storyline kind of loses its purpose pretty quickly within the first half of the series, because like in the initial episode, right, it does a very good job of showing how like discriminated beastmen are, like in the overall like outer range of the world itself in comparison to like when they're in this city. Because even in the first episode, when she first gets there, right, everyone is like they're celebrating like the 10-year anniversary of the city, and like everyone's out in like their beast forms or whatever, and like they're celebrating and stuff like that, and they spend all night celebrating, and like there's an incident that happens that like really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, besides to introduce her to another major character later, and it skips to like the next day, and when it skips to the next day when she wakes up and like she's looking around, everyone they all look like they're normal humans, and she's just like, oh, I don't get it, like why is this happening? It's like why does everyone look like a human? I thought this was a place for like beastmen and only beastmen were here. And you find out that all the beastmen can like wear like a human looking form, a normal human looking form, and like during the day it's like, and during the majority of their time living in that city, that's basically how they look, right? So like they hardly ever look like beastmen, except for her. Like she pretty much stays in her Tanuki form like the entire way through, and I get that she's like a teenager, like a young girl, but she's a very gullible character, and like a lot of the series is just, whoa, look at my wacky hijinks, and occasionally like things will happen that kind of sort of progress the story onwards, and it doesn't really like hit the meat of things until like the last couple episodes or so, and so it just kind of drags in certain parts. And the other main character, Shiro, who's like this like spoilers wolf deity who's been looking after the Beastmen for like thousands of years, you know, his whole thing is oh, bah humbug, I hate all humans because humans hate Beastmen, and that's kind of like his only gimmick to him for like a long time there, and he's really unwilling to help her out for the first episode, but kind of just forgets constantly throughout the series, oh yeah, she's human, up until again like the last couple episodes where he's like, well, didn't you want to go back to being a normal human again, and like just kind of like hangs that over her head. And yeah, it being Studio Trigger, right, it looks beautiful, like it looks good, but like I can't in good conscience say that like story wise or character wise that like it matches anything that they've done within recent years, like especially coming off of something like Promare, right, like
which was kind of like
very bombastic, very like, you know,
the Trigger love letter to Trigger.
Yeah.
It's like, damn, we're good.
Yeah, whereas BNA is just kind of like it almost feels like,
is it the lesser version of Beastars?
Beastars, yeah, it basically feels like it's hopping on that train. Obviously, like it was probably made around the same time.
Because Beastars was about, at least the animation was last year.
Yeah.
I believe the manga preceded it by a bit.
Yeah, but like, you know, it feels like BNA is just kind of capitalizing on that popularity, and I'm pretty sure it's not. It's just that it came out around that time where now we have something to compare it to. Now that we have something compared to,
yeah, and the comparisons are going to happen no matter what.
Yeah, and Beastars is just kind of the way superior show. And I guess like the one difference is like the human element versus like the carnivore and herbivore element of Beastars, right? So it's like humans versus beastmen and BNA. And the thing is that like that's just not quite as strong as I would have liked for it to be, because like it is something that's brought up, but when it is brought up, you're like, but where is it though? You know, like they just bring it up, and because they're like, oh, you're human, so you know you obviously have some biases here, and again, that doesn't really get brought up too much till like towards the end, and it is like it does have its interesting moments, but like it's a very middling show, quite frankly. Like, yeah, like I wouldn't say it's anything extravagant or anything like that, or like a must-watch, have to see, you know, masterpiece or anything like that. It's a very middling show, like another show that kind of like Japan Sinks.
Did you mean Japan Stinks?
So,
Who hasn't heard that one?
Oh my god! Yes.
No, if you don't know what Japan Sinks about, it's about Japan sinks, like literally.
Yeah, a giant earthquake hits.
Or rather, like the tectonic plates are shifting because you know Japan's on the edge of the literal ring of fire.
Yeah, and you know, finally, so the whole thing is that
this is also another Masayuki Yuasa
show, and so the whole thing is that Japan is due for a giant earthquake, and it finally hits. And so what we end up doing is
multiple of them.
Yeah, multiple earthquakes hit, and so Japan, the islands of Japan are sinking to the bottom of the ocean, or they're slowly sinking,
moving closer into the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah,
because they're always referencing like the topography is changing. Like I could see Mount Fuji from here, where I shouldn't. So it's pretty drastic. It follows a young family that experiences like the very first shockwave, and they kind of have to go from the middle of Tokyo towards south of Japan to possibly find a place that's not literally underwater. And you probably heard the memes just because a lot of these characters aren't very likable.
No, they're definitely not. The main character herself is very like, you know, you feel for her in the first episode because spoilers, right? Like she's part of the track team, and her entire team dies during that initial earthquake,
and she kind of feels bad because when she sees them all dead, but there's one of them who's like, help me, I'm being crushed to death, and she kind of just flees away without offering any sort of solace or even attempting to like lift the locker off of her. Like, no, you can't necessarily blame her for like, why didn't you save her and resurrect her? But you can already tell she's that frazzled, and that kind of follows her throughout the show. But it's just things like that don't really work very well. Like, take for example the dad.
Oh yeah, when he died, that was probably the most anticlimactic death.
It was probably the funniest one, but it shouldn't be.
Yeah, because the thing is that the dad was probably the most likable character, right?
He was probably the dumbest.
Yeah,
because you see all this, they really emphasize like, look at all these signs, from 1965.
So
don't do it, and then he sees it, and he's just like, they say that because that means the yams are really good, and there's a lot of them. They don't want you getting it, and then they look more and more upon the signs.
You find out there are mines left over from World War II.
Yeah, it's like you see the signs like that, like outside, like call PGE. If you're going to dig, it's like that. You're like, okay, I should call that. Obviously, they're not going to call because most of the cell service didn't work.
Yeah, most of the things aren't working. So at this point, right, like they're running out of food, they're running out of water, and they just needed supplies. And he was like, yeah, let's go digging in this restricted area. And his death is probably like the least lamented on.
Yeah, they get over it so quickly. Like, immediately episode 3, because it ends on episode 2, he's like, tink, oh no. They show his like innards and limbs flying away. The mom screams, of course, but like immediately, it's the daughter's like, "Oh man, I'm fucking pissed,"
and everyone else is just like, "All right, we gotta move on."
His mom's like, staying back, or her mom staying back won't bring him back, and she's kind of just over it. Like she talks about like her past dates with their father to the kids, off and on. So obviously she's reminiscing fondly, but it never seems to bog her down as much as it should.
Yeah, especially when you compare it to later deaths in the anime, where like they spend so much time lamenting these other characters that that you would think wouldn't impact them nearly as much, right? Like for instance, the old man.
Oh, the man who owns the store.
Grocery store. Yeah.
Which in that time, like, there's two things that the show's really inconsistent with. It's very inconsistent with consequences, and it's very inconsistent with the state of the world, because technically it's not necessarily the end of the world. Like, yeah, it's very catastrophic. Japan is literally sinking. But, like...
Japan's, like, the only place that's affected.
Well, they bring up, like, Indonesia and Philippines, but we don't really see it. But either way, it's not like literally the whole world is sinking. But... there's kind of a gray area of like, hey, we're going to the store because we need supplies. Do we pay? Do we leave money? Do we just take it? And the show doesn't necessarily know if it wants to be like that post-apocalyptic, like almost Walking Dead-like kind of world. But it also wants to bring up like, there's still supposed to be law and order. It touches upon a lot of things in really rapid succession and not exactly like the best.
It never touches on it well. And then there's the fucking cult.
Oh, yeah, because...
the fortune teller lady.
Well, with that part, because after they go to the store and like meet the old man who almost kills the son, he's like, "Oh my bad, I didn't mean to shoot you. Oh yeah, I'm good at electronics. Oh wait, there's another shockwave. Let's go." I'm like, they kind of just got over it quickly.
Yeah, and there's just a lot, right? There's just a lot to Japan sinks. It's just very inconsistent. Like visually, it
does not look very good.
Visually. It like there are parts of it that look good, and other parts of it where
in motion it looks poor most of the time.
I guess the best way to compare it is like
because I didn't
Flowers of Evil.
Not necessarily rotoscope,
but like it's pretty like there are parts.
But at least that's
a
style. The style of this show is like I'm kind of sort of trying,
yeah, and it gets really awkward to look at. You just can't. The pacing is just really awkward, and a character has to die like every episode, pretty much.
Which is expected when this natural disaster keeps reoccurring. It's got Japan in a scoop loop, but it doesn't really capitalize on it because even the gore looked kind of goofy.
Yeah,
and a lot of this is just like when it's trying to be like edgy and dark, it doesn't come off as such.
Because there's just no room to breathe really when it comes to these deaths, because like a character dies and then like the characters just lament about it, and for some of them like a little too long. and all of a sudden the show just kind of is like, all right, next person to die, and the next person dies. They just die in a very rapid succession.
You don't really care about them. I guess the most you would care about would be like Ayumu, the main girl, and Go.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I don't really like the relationship between Ayumu and her mom. Because at first she's like, when they get in that little spat at the beginning of episode 3, like, your dad died, get over it.
Yeah.
And then she's like, how can you get over it, being the rebellious teenager she is.
Yeah.
But then her mom kind of just engages in that and it's like, you know what, well, you're dumb.
Yeah. And,
like,
no,
you're a poopy head. Like, I'm just thinking, like, are you serious?
Yeah,
I understand things are stressful and, like, this could be her way of, like, dealing with it, but you would think she would handle that in a better way. Like, I'm the mother. I'm supposed to be taking care of my kids in this disaster. Yeah. But that kind of just goes on. That lingers on
That lingers on all the way to the end, as a matter of fact.
Until her demise.
Yeah, until she dies.
Oh, yeah, spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. Until the mom dies at the end.
B-Boy, at the beginning of this whole episode, can you just put a big spoiler tag? Oh, okay, yeah. I figured as much. I even meant to say.
Oh yeah, if you're wondering who we're talking to, B-Boy is our editor. If you haven't picked that up yet,
you may have seen him at various fighting game tournaments, which we may or may not cover. We'll probably cover them
more likely than not.
The state of fighting games. Anywho, for that little
Japan Saints, no bueno. I heard just how not great it was. So I don't have a Netflix account or any. I don't want to borrow it because it didn't seem worth it to ask someone to use their account, so I just ignored it completely.
There's plenty of other things to watch on Netflix or anime than that. It's just bad in very different ways. It's not necessarily overtly bad, but
it's just
for the point it's trying to make, it doesn't do it very well, and it tries to make a lot of points. Like with the whole because there's. The one thing about this family is that they get lucky quite a bit. Like, oh, there's a ship. It's got to take you away. Oh, you didn't tell me about your heart condition. Well, I'm going to run away off the boat with you. And then the boat capsizes because the aftershock makes a tsunami.
Oh, okay.
And then another instance where there's another, like, group of people where they have their own boats. But we're only saving the Japanese. And it's just like, oh, great. Japan and its nationalism. Where do we stand in it? I don't know. The boat sank.
Oh.
Yeah, especially... Oh, and to... reference on why the Japanese nationalism thing is important is because the mom is not Japanese; she's Filipino.
Which that's an interesting aspect. Yeah. Like I for the certain good things I could say, I do like that you can tell the kids are mixed.
Yeah,
like more so Go than Ayumu, but you could still tell.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool because they touch upon like the state of like foreigners in Japan. Are they good? Are they bad? Only the boomers don't like them, which even I think is kind of an outdated kind of stereotype. Just it's a lot crammed in, but not a lot expressed. There's a reason why people call it Japan Sneaks. That's all I can say. It's. I also found out. Like, I didn't know going into it. It was based off of the novel called Japan Sings, like that came out in the 70s.
Yeah.
So I know that was kind of a hotly debated book.
Yeah, and it's also got a couple movies to its name as well that were made for it. And instead of following Ayumi, it follows a different character instead. But that's kind of our thoughts on Japan Sings.
For a disaster movie, the biggest disaster is its characters.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
What's the next show that hopefully doesn't stink?
Was that in spring? I thought that was more recent.
It was pretty much the end of the spring going into the summer. So, I mean, there are a couple shows that you watched that we didn't in this season as well.
Yep.
Oh, just real quick, I did like the opening of Japan Sings.
Okay, cool.
I mean,
nice little
sound design was really good.
Piano sonata. Yeah, when it wanted to be.
Well, I don't think any of you guys watch Tsugumomo.
What is that?
So basically, this is season 2 because the first season was called just Tsugumomo. Excuse me. So basically, the main character, Kazuya, he basically doesn't remember too much about his younger self. He's just a typical school kid, nothing special. But at one point during one day, he runs into this like monster, and he's just like, "Oh no, I'm going to die." But then like this, how can I describe it? He has one heirloom from his mother who's no longer with him, and it's this obi that's like it's based on. It looks like it's white and it's got like a sakura cherry blossom design to it. it transforms into a girl, and then it fights off the monster. And so then, basically, this Obi, his name's Kiriha, like, basically explains that when people's desires get all crazy and shish, they basically make these monsters, and they just need to get rid of them. And so basically, as he's kind of annoyed with it at first. He just kind of wants to, live just the usual school life. He misses his peaceful days, and then like she ends up living with him and causing various shenanigans as you do. And there's basically, as it also goes on, they introduce more characters like the local goddess who wants him to become like basically someone that fights the demons and fights these like small incidents and like counter them. And then that's basically the end of season 1. And season 2 is just a continuation. And like there's also like a dark Obi and like these like this other group of individuals who they want to spread like the chaos basically. And so they introduce another girl who's like a rival who also ends up liking him, but that's something else. But it's just one of those shows, like I said earlier, where it's just like, this was like my starter show. And like something I just put on first.
Just one of those like romantic comedy, like harem shows that's just like a fun thing to watch.
Yeah, not too much romance, because he's one of those damn harem leads where he's dense as a rock.
Dense as the rock.
So you're just like, oh, whatever. And then like Kiriha like is not super romantically invested. It's just like, I need to protect this person, this kid, because it's my old master's son. And like as their bond grows stronger, they learn more about it. More stuff gets revealed about his past and like how his mother died and stuff. But yeah, it was just a simple, nothing really extraordinary. But the opening had a nice ring to it, but nothing amazing. You could say it was just a nice show to just turn my brain off, like get in the mood to watch anime.
Not gonna lie, I guess for me, Azur Lane was probably that anime for this season.
Like
where I just kind of turned off my brain. And I was like, "Oh look, ship waifus," because I play that gacha game.
Yeah, you and
Speaking of which, brings it to our sponsor.
Oh my god!
I wish I could say that, but
nope.
Yeah,
we're not sponsored by Azur Lane. Azur Lane, sponsor us.
That would be amazing.
I read all your
cool.
dojins.
I
don't even play your game. But
Hyaron and I play it. Hyaron obviously more than I do. I feel bad when obviously you don't play for a long time and you come back in. Nakashi's like wrote this cute little letter like, "Hey, you've been gone for this long, but it's okay. We've been doing fine," and blah blah. I'm like, "I'm sorry," and then I roll for the event and then I don't play again for like 2 months.
I mean, the anime was just World War II, right? Like
that's basically the story of Azur Lane. Is just old ships turn to waifus. You have the Azur Lane, which is formed to basically the Americans.
Which is basically the Allies versus the
Iron Bloods.
Yeah, the Iron Blood, which is basically the Germans.
And the
Japanese.
Japanese.
The Sakura Empire, which is basically the Japanese. So, like, that's basically what the show is.
Wait, what's the one white-haired German ship?
Oh, there's a lot.
There are a lot of white-haired
It's the one with the
German
biggest titties. That's my favorite.
Oh my god.
I forget her name.
Well, Prince Eugen is the most popular.
Yeah.
She was my first SR pull and my first.
This is now
waifu
sponsored
in the
by
ship.
Prince. This is a Prince podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're
I'm
talking about
down
the
for
one with
that.
the mole on her breast, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But a very
Press on.
top tier waifu. Just it was chill. It was nice to see like.
The funny part is that, like, I don't know if I would call it a chill anime, considering it was based off of World War II. So, like, there are a lot of, like...
What do you mean? World War II is pretty chill.
It was pretty, nothing spectacular.
I mean, some of us were wilding out a little too hard, but other than that, pretty chill.
Yeah, like, it had its moments where, like, it wanted you to take it really, really seriously. But it being what it is... Mm-hmm. Right, like it being another gacha-based anime of that nature, it's kind of like, yeah, sure, it's like if you weren't invested in the story to begin with, you're not gonna be invested in it by watching the anime. Like that's kind of how it is with Azur Lane. Yeah. You're either watching it because you like the waifus, or you're watching it because you're like that 10% of people who played the game who were invested in the story. Like, oh wow, I wonder who's gonna win.
Yeah, and just I love the game, but I still don't know much about the story because I just kept grinding events. But just the first couple of episodes, you could, like you said, they could tell some parts they want to be like, this is really serious. It's going down, and then you just at some points.
And then
it's
they
just
have
like,
an episode with the 3 starter ships just
being Moe.
yeah being Moe,
And you're just
and
like,
being
yeah,
like,
this is why we're
best
here.
friends!
Yeah,
And
this is what we're here for.
yeah. So Azur Lane, would it be recommended? No, not really. Not unless you
It's
play
one
the
of
game
those
already.
like
Yeah.
advertisement shows. Like you've seen a card game anime, you've seen a mobile game anime, you've seen them all.
Yeah, I think the only one that like probably like, broke the mold on that probably would have been like Grand Blue Fantasy, and that's because that was like mini side stories you got that were kind of like Easter eggs if you played the game itself, which I guess in a way it was more of fan service towards the fans than it was to drag in new players, or something like Fate Grand Order Babylonia, which was also again just for fan service, so people who have played the games could get a major. It's like you get to see one of the best stories in Grand Order animated. But Azur Lane was definitely not a Grand Blue Fantasy or a Fate Grand Order type of anime, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there could be the guy like, this is my life.
This is all I'm here for.
Yeah, who just loved it.
It's me, I'm that guy.
Right. So that's pretty much it for us when it comes to the spring anime. There weren't like a lot of other things.
Oh, well, there's something else on here, I guess.
Oh, go for it.
Speaking of like advertising anime, there's a Shadowverse.
I mean, do you want to count that?
Well,
Might
like,
as well. What did you think of it? I
yeah.
guess.
I watched it because I freaking love Shadowverse. I've been playing since set 1, and then I retired for a couple sets because... But I just love the card game overall, and so I remember seeing it, like, revealed, like, Shadowverse anime, and I was just like, alright.
Can you give me the Spark Notes version of the Shadowverse lore? Is it like a Sonic spinoff?
No, okay, so
No.
so the Shadowverse anime is very, very different from the Shadowverse game.
Yeah.
Because the game is about like an alternate world where there are 10, right? 10 of them right? No, 8 of them right now.
Yeah.
8 different like protagonists, kind of come together to kind of keep like peace within like their own like little pocket dimensions and stuff
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
But stuff happens, they get sent to another world, and
Yeah,
stuff goes on.
yeah.
The
It's
anime
kinda-
is very different.
Yeah, and the anime is basically like Yu-Gi-Oh, but with Shadowverse
It's
characters.
people, it's literally
Yeah.
just like kids
Yeah, it's just
playing the
people-
game.
Yeah, it's just kids playing the game, and like that's all you need to know about
Is there a
it.
Shadow Realm?
No.
Wow, so it's
No.
not like Yu-Gi-Oh!
Not at all.
So you're lying to me.
No,
I
it is.
I didn't say Yu-Gi-Oh! But
It is like Yu-Gi-Oh.
But it's just like basically the protagonist who's like super just like, yeah, I need to
If-
play this game. Basically, if you
Yeah.
see any other like
Like
competition,
stereotypical
His
kind
name
of
is
like.
Bloogie Blodo.
I mean, he might as well
Sure.
be. I mean, he looks just like him.
dude, I will give one thing though. Freaking Side Games, they got money. That show looks amazing. When it wants to flex, like when they start like the game, like it just goes dummy hard and like
B-Boy,
kinda
make that
start-
the quote on the thumbnail. Side Games, they've got money.
they go obviously they go dummy hard.
You should sponsor a side game.
Like when they begin a match, it's like a transformation sequence. Basically, like they get their phone, they put it like in their little gauntlet wrist thing, and they do crazy poses, and shit's going nuts. And like the MC literally lets out a fucking battle cry, just and then like a shit like an explosion, like you're watching like Sentai or any other tokusatsu. You're just like, Jesus fuck, what am I watching? Card games or like the new season of like Kamen Rider? So.
I mean, I wouldn't compare it to Kamen Rider,
But
yeah.
for a card game thing, it's pretty nuts.
I
Like
mean,
how much effort they put into it.
I watched like the first episode of it too, and like it's just if you watch the card game anime, it's pretty much the same.
It's
Yeah.
super like
Yeah,
this game is the best.
Yeah, if you watch
Everyone should play it.
it's a card game anime. If you don't play the card game, you're probably not gonna like this. Definitely
Yeah.
not something that definitely not something that I would recommend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's only for like. I mean, yeah, it's a promotional anime for the card game, but like, it's odd because like I don't know, just go play the card game. It's a great game.
Yeah, And the thing is that like if the thing that you like about Shadowverse's card game, which like I don't know many. It's like I'm not sure if there are a lot of people out there who are playing it exclusively for the lore. But if that was what you're going after,
Yeah,
you're hoping
that
for
is
that in
not
the anime,
there at all.
That is not there at all. And at that point, you should probably stay away from the anime if that's
like,
what you're looking for.
The actual game itself has a very in-depth, like lengthy story.
Yeah,
with different viewpoints, like you said, off the different protagonists.
Yeah.
But anime, nope, just play the game and it's great. And yeah, that's all they do. So.
Yeah, so it's definitely not it definitely is promotional material first, and for the fans probably like second, I guess, because unless you're watching it purely for like visuals or something like that, I don't think like a regular like Shadowverse fan would be that into the anime either.
Yeah, because like the more I watched it, the more I got on, I was like, okay, I kind of get it. Like you don't have to pimp it to me. I'm already like an avid player, so I was done.
Yeah, it's a very generic type of marketing card game anime, like similar to like something like I said, Yu-Gi-Oh or like Vanguard or other things like that, where they're just like, whoa, we're wacky kids who play card games.
It's toy commercial, the show.
Yeah.
Those could be fun.
Yeah, don't be wrong. Some can be done. Just this one, I already played the game. It kind of weird out on me. There wasn't anything else to keep me invested or interested in watching.
Not even Saitama from One Piece?
Oh my god.
JK.
No. But is there anything else for the spring, or is that it for you guys?
Let's see. Another show that came out during the spring that was pretty popular was the Isekai anime. My next life as a villainess. All routes lead to death.
I see it pimped so much.
It's very, very popular.
Same. I didn't get around to it though.
So the basic premise of the story is that obviously it's about a girl who's reincarnated into another world, and she is the villain. She was reborn as the villainess of that story, and she played through the Otome game. She played through an Otome game that is basically the world that she's now living in, and what ends up happening is that no matter who the main female lead ends up with, she ends up dying. And so her whole thing is that she's trying to avoid that as hard as possible. And so she spends and as soon as she gets her memories back, she spends her entire like childhood up into her high school years trying to avoid every death flag possible. What ends up happening instead is that everyone falls in love with her, including all the female leads. So it becomes a very
that was my next question. I was like, who's this show's target audience? That was my next question. So because I didn't know if it was like, because it's Otome game isekai sort of thing. I was just like, is it only targeted toward that audience?
I would say like if you're the type of person who like just like enjoys isekai in general, you'll like it.
Okay.
Like you'll enjoy it. There's not I wouldn't say like the target audience is so narrow that if you enjoy isekai in general that you wouldn't enjoy it, right? It's definitely aimed towards like the more female demographic, but as a dude you'll appreciate it for what it is. It's entertaining. A lot of memes have come out of it that I've seen.
Yeah, I've seen a lot.
Yeah, a lot of memes come out of it. It seems pretty popular from what I've... And, it's definitely something that... like, I enjoyed it. It was funny. It was definitely funny. I will admit that my main reason for watching it was...
Horny?
Yeah, I mean, technically speaking, we could say we're horny because... one of my favorite female seiyuu, Maya Uchida, is the voices the main character, and I was just like, you know what? For you, I'll watch this show. And I ended up enjoying it, and it was a fun romp. I guess for the spring, considering how tiny that list is of anime, like I guess my recommendations would have to go to like this and Listeners. Those would probably be the two. Well, what about it for you guys? Yeah,
that's what I think.
For spring?
Yeah, like what? It's like, how do you guys feel about the spring season? Considering like it basically got shafted.
I have a drop in the bucket. After this, especially with this whole project, I'm definitely gonna revisit a lot. Just as of right now, it was all right. I mean, you can't really do much about it.
Yeah, you can't really fault it considering, again, it got smacked in the face by the virus.
But yeah, just ain't nothing much to it.
Summer though,
Yeah, it's the summer, right?
Good.
nice and girthy.
Yeah, lots of stuff to pick from.
Speaking of girthy, how about that Fire Force?
Whoo, baby! I
Right.
love Fire Force so much.
Season 2.
So, my little backstory with Fire Force: a while back, my brother moved out of my apartment, and I had no Wi-Fi for a long time. And so, what I would do to kill time is I would go to Barnes and Noble and get a coffee and just read various manga. And so, I saw a manga, Fire Force. And I was like, oh, that name sounds interesting. And I grabbed it, and I saw it was by the same person that did Soul Eater. And I also love Soul Eater. And I was just like, ooh, all right, I can see it. So I started reading, and I was getting really deep into it. There was only 3 volumes out here translated at the time. But I was very interested to see where it was going to go from there. And eventually, they were like, Fire Force anime adaptation. And I was like, fucking sweet. Cool. I don't have to wait that long.
It got pimped hard at AX.
Oh, yeah. I remember the Matchbox was
Matchbox and the little mascots.
Mm-hmm.
Those are pretty cool.
Yeah, so I was very excited for the anime, and Season 1 definitely delivered. So, of course, I was also very excited for Season 2, and so far it is also delivered.
Yeah, so Fire Force Season 2 is... It started off very high octane in comparison,
Oh, yeah.
Because they especially start going in more in depth about like the repercussions of coming out from the void and the whole like
The pillars, as well as the
Adola Link.
the Dola Link, and now they're like looking for the other like pillars, like similar to Shinra and his brother Sho, and like the crazy
pink-haired chick.
crazy pink-haired chick that
asshole.
I can't be bothered to remember her name.
You hate her so much. I remember we watched the episode after she like quote unquote saved that person. You mentioned, he was like, "This chick's an asshole."
Oh yeah, she's a huge bitch. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the thing is that she's not very. She doesn't have very many endearing qualities, right? She's probably like the one like black spot for me so far in the series. But I guess like a series like this needed a hate sink. Like every shonen kind of needs their like hate sink.
I will say
character,
I do
right?
like her ability a lot. The whole like
Oh yeah, where she like traces the line.
The
and
kind of
she-
like
She can also predict.
foresight,
Yeah, the foresight flame.
clairvoyance,
and shit.
flames.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
like
that
the-
was pretty badass.
She has a really cool power, but she's just like a hate sink of a character. I mean,
Yeah.
how else should you feel about a character who's just like, you know what? I want to put myself in a situation where like I have a chance of dying, just like
Yeah,
constantly.
she needs that thrill.
Yeah, like she needs that.
Like, oh, you
thrill.
wanna
Adrenaline
put me-
junkie.
You want to put me in protective custody? Fuck that. Absolutely not.
With the show about fire, there's bound to be someone who's like the kind of sort of
Yeah,
pyromaniac.
pyromaniac.
Yeah, that's like, and the thing is that like I'm okay with like the whole pyromania thing. The problem is that she's not into the pyromania so much as she is into the idea of getting other people to inflict pain on her without inflicting pain on her. Like that, like the whole like declaration of like, hey, you're gonna chase after me, why don't you just kill me? Oh, that makes me feel so good. And you're just like, I guess, like what kind of character is this?
Yeah. She's definitely an interesting case
An interesting nutcase.
In a show full with such top tier like waifu material, like she's just like, obviously besides her design, there's really nothing else to go.
There's no like
Unless you like crazy chicks, then of course, fuck it, go for it. That's about it.
And the thing is like she's not even like the hottest waifu, right? Like
Oh,
look
not
at
at all.
look at the other crazy chick, Hamea, the blonde chick with the crown over her eyes.
Who's with the invelogist?
Yeah,
I can't
with
say
it.
that word. The bad people,
Evangeli-
the
the
villains.
Evangelists?
Yeah,
The Evangelists?
Yeah.
God damn it, I almost couldn't pronounce it either.
The Evangelis.
The Evangelis.
villains.
Yeah. With
guys.
yeah, she's like another like okay. if we want to talk about like crazy characters, like she's just a much better done crazy female character, villain character than a pink-haired girl whose name I can't be bothered to remember.
Inca.
Yeah, like
INCA.
yeah, Inca. Like
Or do you
she.
mean- let's show about Hibana for a second. The other pink girl.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
yeah, sorry,
talking about the
sorry.
captain of Fire Force
Yeah,
5.
Princess Hibana.
Yeah, the princess.
Mhm.
Oh, so good.
Like they already have like the crazy female
Chick,
character
yeah, like
archetype,
archetype
and now,
done.
Yeah, and now they're adding another one, but like less good. It's like
Yeah.
not as good. Like she's
Less pluses, more negs.
next,
Yeah.
I suppose.
I was kind of curious, like if they'll do anything else with her this season.
I
I don't know how many episodes they got left this season, so
I will
hopefully
say
not.
the one thing I'm really enjoying is just how consistently good Fire Force has been, like from its inception to now. Like
Yeah.
they've only like raised the stakes more and more. It looks better. The fight sequences are animated better
the sound
each time.
It's like the sound design is amazing.
and of course the fire looks good
'Cause,
as
like,
you would hope.
I always got like kind of like sort of Bleach vibes from it, but I don't ever, not once do I ever think like, oh, this is such a ripoff, or like it's the lesser Bleach. Like it definitely has certain influences that it wears on its sleeve, but like very discreetly.
Yeah.
So I very much like that.
And the thing is that Fire Force has a lot of characters, right? It has a lot of like so far, like from what we've seen, it's introduced quite a cast of characters. And the thing is that every time it introduces its cast of characters, we get a little bit on each of them to make them memorable, right, in their own ways. And that's something that I really appreciate nowadays in like long running, like kind of shonen type anime like this, that because that's kind of like the trend nowadays, right? Is that like if you're kind of like this action adventure like Shonen Jump long running anime, you tend to have like a shit ton of characters. You just have a lot of them
That just get curtailed.
yeah, they just get curtailed. And so far Fire Force has done and who knows, maybe I'll eat my words later in the future, right? But Fire Force has done a good job of introducing the characters and then keeping them relevant in the arcs that they're introduced, whereas there are a lot of other series out there where they introduce a new character and that character immediately gets shoved onto a shelf and we don't see them for the rest of the arc. So that's something I'm appreciating right now, especially since after that like high octane beginning of the second season, right now we're into kind of like a little it did slow down a little bit when they had to go to like China basically to to look for like the other crazy engine thing, the other like Amaterasu like engine thing, and then from there like for a couple episodes they had like a couple like wacky hijinks episodes too, before they again escalate to pretty great action overall.
Yeah, as of that last episode, that was really good. Like just it was a lot of hype. Like right now it's really picking back up. So I'm really just every week and the episode ends, I'm just like, oh man, I can't wait for the next one.
And really that's something that I haven't had with like a shonen in quite a while, where like you're just anticipating the next episode because it leaves off on a pretty good either cliffhanger or a nice like high note that makes you want
always
to pick
leaves
it
you
up
wanting more. Like
more. Yeah.
your appetite's always ready.
And that opening, oh my god, it's been stuck in my head this whole time it's been out, and it probably won't be until even after the season ends. I'm still probably gonna be bumping it.
I'm very glad that they're using David Productions to like the fullest, because the JoJo anime onlys are crying about it. Like, why isn't there part 6 right now?
Wait, no, they can watch Fire Force 2 and they'll understand.
Yeah, that is JoJo part 6, bro. You know?
Oh my god.
Yeah, instead of Jolene, you get Shinra.
Yeah,
There you
it's Fire Herman.
Come on.
But overall, I think we're all pretty positive on Fire Force
Super
season
positive.
2.
Yep.
And another season 2 that came out this year or this summer that we all haven't really watched, but we'll give like a little bit of reference to, is ReZero season 2. So far people seem pretty high on it. Yeah, like from what I've been seeing around, from what little I've seen around.
Yeah, I haven't seen too
people
many
seem
negatives.
pretty high on it. Like I know you've watched a little bit of it, Base.
But
Like to preface this, Base doesn't really like.
I think
the
it's
first
very
season,
overrated,
of
the entire
ReZero,
series of
yeah.
itself, and I didn't think we were going to touch on it right now, but
we're just gonna give it like a very, very like soft touch. Of,
Here's a taste.
yeah, the fact that ReZero season 2, I feel like there's just not enough for the three of us to really touch on, but it's something that we kind of have to bring up because it's the other major continuation going on.
I'll go more in depth in it once we actually get to our episode where we kind of wrap up the summer.
But as it stands right now,
it seems like there's a lot more gratuitous action / violence than necessary. Because one of my biggest gripes about the first season and the show in general is that the action is kind of whack.
Yeah,
but for some reason, everyone's just like, "Oh, gee, jizzers, the whale fight."
And then season 2 kind of just flips
I don't see it.
Yeah, season 2 just kind of flips it on its
It's
head.
just more of what the ReZero fans want, and that's like less of what I want. Because at the end of the day, my biggest gripe with it is that the dialogue is so fucking stupid. Like, I need to do more research on my end, but I feel like this is the directors / like writers' first big series, and you can tell because here's the thing. It's probably surprised the other two. Like, it's a good looking show. It's a good sounding show. Like, aesthetically,
the first one
it's fine and it's made really well. But the second they open their mouths, it just crumbles. It's just stupid.
Yeah, it's
otaku self-insert dialogue, and I know that's kind of the point, but just because that's the point of what Subaru is supposed to be doesn't make him likable.
It's definitely something that we're going to.
It's just kind of dumb. And the thing is, there's so much of it. There's so much talking. So when people are like, "The action, though," I'm like, "Well, okay, where?"
Where?
Yeah, that's definitely something that we're gonna have to touch on.
But I don't want to go
later.
too much into it. But as of right now, I'm kind of like, it's not for me.
Yeah, it's definitely something that
It's one of very many shows I'll list that really all of us will that like wouldn't watch it if we weren't doing this.
And it is unfortunate that we're moving on from something that we're so high on to something that we're kind of like a little bit of whatever about. But it's definitely something that was worth bringing up. So, and moving on from there, speaking of like action, let's talk about the action anime of the season. Referencing back to
you mean the most popular anime of the season, the
God
God of Highschool.
I was like, someone gonna say it. They're
Yeah.
gonna say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said earlier, as someone who doesn't read manhwa / web comics or whatever, this was another one in our group chat that is very much like when Tower God came up. People were like, "Oh man, that'd be pretty dope if they did God of Highschool." And then sometime later on, they're like, "Hey, God of Highschool is getting anime." Everyone's like, "Oh, fucking pog!" So everyone's really excited and like hopeful. Like, man, let's hope it's done with enough respect and care as Tower God was. And like for me myself, it's very entertaining. Some of the best fight scenes I've seen in a long time.
This show is everything that Black Clover wants to be so badly, but fails to be.
I don't know.
It's super fast paced, but
Okay.
it works.
Oh, okay.
The characters all work really well together. No one ever gets shit on for the sake of being shit on. Hyoran knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's high octane. It looks good like all the time. Like even if there's a bunch of like different sort of aesthetics going on from like the very beginning, the intro. Granted,
like
that's
the
kind of the only
techno-y-
thing I don't like about it is that I'm kind of whatever on the beginning and end, but everything else is just done so well. And it's not even like necessarily the highest like elevated sort of story. It's just like tournament arc,
Which
It does it
are
well.
Awesome.
which that's kind of funny that this show, really any shonen, starts off on a tournament arc. Like if you look back on it, that's not super common, but it works super well.
And the thing is that it takes that tournament arc part of it and it runs with it, right?
Like
Like
if you were to list all the things like this show has and is about, on paper it sounds like, oh, it's just kind of dumb generic action, but like it's just such a treat to watch.
And the thing is that even if you just see it as dumb generic action, it's very, very good dumb generic
Some
action.
of the best.
And there's a
action
bit of subversions here and there, like it, especially like take its main cast, it's Trinity. You would think like typically there's always the one character who gets shit on, like in Naruto, it's Sakura, obviously, who kind of just
In this case, you
doesn't
would think
do
it'd be
much.
Mira, but
No,
Mira's
you-
actually a very,
No, she could throw down.
yeah, and she gets
she's
a lot of
very
good scenes.
well-rounded character.
Yeah.
She's a very well-rounded character. One of my favorite female characters, like of this season, and maybe even anime in general. But like even she's not necessarily like removed from the more brash and slapstick kind of comedy because like you see her getting thrown into the mix.
Yeah, she gets into it just as much as the two boys do.
Even like with the silly parts where she's talking to like the karatekas who are like, "Oh, I love strongman." They start like,
yeah. In the first episode,
I'm gonna bulge out of my gis, and then she gets ran over by Jin Mori.
I actually did kick at that.
Yeah, and only for her to prove that she was way stronger than any of those guys flexing out there.
Exactly. I like that too. That's super consistent. Like, she's kind of like a sweet, timid girl, but she's like, "Oh, I don't like weak guys. You got to be strong.
No, you're pathetic.
I'm a girl with a mission. You know, I've got to carry on the Moonblade style."
And she keeps that with her, and the thing is too is that's not the only thing about her, right? And
yeah,
like,
exactly.
And like she fights just as well as the two main male characters do, and that's something that we don't get a lot of nowadays, honestly. Yeah. Where it's kind of where we get a female character who can brawl as well as the two male characters.
She has a ton of like good moments, like especially the fact that she doesn't need a sword because she is the sword with her techniques, doing like the chops and whatnot, but they act like, air blades.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of blades, Dawe is the best character because his fighting style is fucking Beyblade. If you guys didn't notice that, he's got, the 4 different styles: black tortoise,
the black
white
tortoise,
tiger,
the white tiger,
vermilion
the red
phoenix, and
and
Azure
blue,
dragon.
Yep.
Does that sound fucking familiar?
His fighting style is based off of Kyokushin karate, which is a karate style that they developed in Korea, and all of their attack names are named after the 4
like sacred beasts,
the 4
north,
sacred
east,
beasts,
southwest,
like north, east, southwest.
When I saw him like bust those moves out, I immediately texted Hyora, and I was like, "I bet you love that shit, don't you?"
You should have texted me.
I didn't know you were. I don't know Beyblade really at all, so I didn't. I was like, whatever. That wasn't part of my childhood like you guys. But I was just like, I know Hyora here is very much into those like sacred beasts in like the various like card games. Like if stuff gets alluded to it, like in Vanguard, you're just like, "Oh, that's fucking sick." And so I was like, man, I bet you really like his style, don't you?
I do, and the thing is too is that like I like Jin Mori a lot, even though he's kind of that dumb idiot character archetype. It's like he does it in
his strength is very endearing.
Yeah,
like he's kind of this amalgamation of shonen characters. Like he's kind of got the airheadness of Luffy, if that's fair to say.
I would say he's most similar to Luffy out of.
But he's also
of them,
he also has the approach to fighting like a Yusuke.
Yeah,
he's very skilled, but he's very knowledgeable of his skills because he's trained well in his style of taekwondo.
Yeah, and the thing is too is that he's also very he's very observant for the type of character that you kind of expect from him.
Mm-hmm.
Like you kind of expect him to not be the type to be able to read a mood. But
like analyze an opponent's fighting style,
or like he's very much so a character who fights with his brain as much as he does with his brawn, which is something you don't expect from someone who is outed as an idiot in the first couple episodes.
He's got the kind of Son Goku kind of genius when it comes to martial arts, but isn't as necessarily lackadaisical or careless. Like he comes off as that, it's definitely refreshing because like at least in the manga in the very beginning, he's just kind of like open, like blah blah blah. I'm the strongest fighter.
Yeah,
and like you see that, or at least I saw. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be one of those.
You're like, not again.
And then like he starts off like taking an L immediately.
Yeah, and then which is something that we unfortunately didn't get to see in the anime, was watching him take his first L.
It just gets alluded to. Like we know who did it.
Yeah. And the thing is that an episode that really highlights that Mori's character would probably be the episode where Mira is about to get married.
Yeah.
And and like that's an episode where he is the idiot, right? And he is the character, but like the character who can't read the mood and whatnot, but he reads the mood pretty well here. He and Daiwi both, they both understand that she doesn't want to go through with this, and that no one else is going to stick up for her, and so even with being her newest friends who don't know her very well, he still goes out of his way to kind of, to go through with it. And he even tells her too that if this is what you really want, like if you told me this from like the bottom of your heart, then I'll let it go. But obviously she didn't, and Mori really kind of exemplifies that even in this latest episode that I won't talk too much about because it just came out on a couple days ago from this recording.
Mhm.
So I don't know how many people have actually gotten a chance to watch it yet, but that episode itself kind of shows off how different it's like a little bit how different his mindset is in comparison to other characters of similarity.
We also can't forget our boy
Daiwi.
Beyblade Man.
Yeah.
Daiwi.
Daiwi is a very interesting character, right?
Like, he clearly fits the kind of archetype of like kind of
He's
brooding, mysterious,
like the aloof type character.
like he for all intents and purposes, he is kind of the rival slash, I don't want to say anti-hero, but he has a lot of those characteristics.
He's the rival slash. He has both the qualities of the rival slash best friend character, right?
Yeah, because like he clearly comes off like, oh man, so mysterious, you know,
And antagonistic, especially like for the first like portion of the series. But
like in
he warms up very
execution,
quickly. Yeah,
very caring. Like his whole motivation is very noble. You know, trying to get the funds to help his sick friend. You know, the promise he made to him, the whole reason why he's even in the God of Highschool tournament. It's like you expected a Kaiba, but you got a Joey, but you still kind of have both. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got a very clean mixture of Kaiba and Joey.
And
Kaiba without the arrogance too.
And that's the thing I like about God of Highschool the most is like that word mixture.
Yeah, because like all the
Champloo even, which is a mixture.
Because all the characters are very endearing in their own ways, right? Even the like side one-off characters that in the webtoon, you know, we got a lot of backstory for, but obviously they don't have time in the anime.
Well, we get a bit of that with the first 3v3 team, like the I'm terrible with a lot of the other names, but the guy who's super focused on like passing the high school exam, even though he's an adult,
he's way older,
and he's failed like 16 times or something ridiculous.
Yeah, and the thing too that I like about that is that God of Highschool goes out of like natural conventions, because like, you know, you hear God of Highschool, so you're like, oh, so they're all obviously be high school students, but then they took this like 32-year-old guy and threw them into this tournament because, you know, technically, right, he's in high school because he's trying to graduate.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool that they added him in there, and, you know, they even show off fights from, like, the other like the strongest characters in, like, God of High School. We even get to see some of them fight, and that's pretty interesting in itself. But yeah, there's not much else to say about God of High School other than...
It's good, and it's the most popular for a reason.
And you should definitely watch it if you haven't. You know, it's if for no other reason than for the visual spectacle that it is,
and it will get even more bombastic and crazy. Read the webtoon too.
I would definitely recommend it. I personally, as a person who is still reading the webtoon, right? There are certain moves that they do in the anime that like I'm a little bit disappointed by seeing that animated, because it doesn't look as visually stunning. And the thing is, maybe B-boy here, our editor, can like post like a couple, like maybe like a page or something of like Mori using the renewal taekwondo triple kick for the first time.
Yeah, because like everything Dawe does is pretty epic.
It's
super.
Yeah, it's pretty bombastic. But
brings
like,
out Drasil and Dronzer. But yeah, the triple kick was kind of like, oh, is that really it?
Yeah, and if you look at the kick in the webtoon, right, you can see it looking like him using after images to attack his opponent, because the whole point of the attack is that he hits them from 3 different points at the same time. But in the anime, it just looks like he's kicking him 3 times.
Yeah. I got a sweet move, kick 3 times. Okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah, you know, and that's not exactly the most visually appealing thing. And renewal taekwondo in the webtoon is it's for something as simple as just punching and kicking people, it looks very, very pretty. Mm-hmm. Which I can't say that the anime didn't do well, right?
Yeah,
I can't say that, but it does leave a little bit to be desired. Fortunately, I mean, at least the Blue Dragon kick is pretty awesome looking. Mm-hmm. Like, they didn't take anything away from that, and like that is definitely one of his coolest moves during this. And watch God of High School, guys.
Yeah. TLDR, watch God of High School.
Read it, watch it. I'm pretty sure that it'll get a second season. I think part of the reason why it was kind of formatted the way it is, just because the steal that Crunchyroll got with webtoons, this is just mainly conjecture and speculation. I imagine it's not necessarily set in stone. It was because you don't really see stuff like this happening, so I'm pretty sure like, well, let's just test the waters, and then they got X amount of budget between the two of them, and then they're like, we got to just go with it. And
maybe even 3 if we consider Noblesse or Noblesse that we'll be talking about in a little while here.
oh no, but I imagine they just like wanted to make the most of it in the case that like perhaps it still fell through, but it doesn't seem like it's going to. Just if God of Highschool alone, like Tower of God was received fairly well, just off the the novelty that like this is a manhwa animated.
So a hidden gem. Well, I shouldn't call it a hidden gem because everyone sort of knew about it already. But the problem was Netflix is kind of like Netflix.
Netflix was hiding it from us. This gem.
Yeah, and that is The Great Pretender.
Probably my anime of the year.
And I would definitely agree with that. It is visually stunning. Its soundtrack is amazing, and the way it sections off its plots is just it's definitely something that like it's just amazing how it just sections everything apart. And the best way to put a summary for the show is it's Ocean's 11 in anime form.
Or rather like if you've ever seen the movie Catch Me If You Can.
Oh yeah,
kind of like that, where it's about a con man, or rather who thinks he's the greatest con man gets conned by another con man from outside of Japan, and so he has to join him in his escapades to get his money back, and they essentially make a deal, like whoever can con this person for more money, then I'll be that person's like subordinate.
Yeah, and that's just like the first like story arc, right? Like after that one ends, they start off a new story arc with the same set of characters but under different circumstances, and the way it transitions between each arc is very unique and sets up like the entire arc in such like a complete like package story that if you just watch that arc by itself, you could probably just get away with that and still feel good about it.
It's a globetrotting kind of story because it starts off with
Edamura,
the main character, meeting what was his name?
Laurent.
Yeah, Laurent.
Yeah,
the French thief.
And they start off in Japan. They go to L.A., where that very first story arc just takes place in L.A. And then from L.A. they go to Singapore to
France,
and
then France into England in that same one.
Yeah. And so there's just like a lot of movement and transition between the various like globetrotting, and it does it in such a way that it's very believable and very very fun to watch and see in motion.
And for a show that doesn't actually have a lot of action, it's still very like gripping because it's a lot of it is just mind games and wondering, are they going to get away with this specific heist? Because they aren't necessarily like jewel thieves, they're just con men, so they're trying to take money from these high ranking people like in broad daylight off of these like certain false pretenses and stories they make up. They're like, oh, I'm so and so and I have this X amount of money, and I like the first arc they come posing off as like pharmaceutical scientists from Japan that made this like super illicit drug. Yeah, that's like going to be the new thing. It's like crack, cocaine, and meth had a baby and came up with this drug. It was what was it, Sakura?
Like Sakura Magic,
yeah,
is what they called it. Yeah,
and to Edamura, who they keep calling edamame because they're all different ethnicities. Like you got someone from France, Edamura, Japan.
Yeah, you got someone from England. For
Abigail.
Yeah, Abigail. Abigail's from...
Oh, no, I'm not Abigail.
Yeah, Abigail's...
Cynthia.
Yeah, Cynthia from England. And they're all their personalities just are so different from each other as well. It causes a great mesh, right? Because like all their personalities kind of play off each other. Edamura being like that very kind of screechy... I say screechy, but like...
Well, it's funny because it's such a contrasting like
set
approach.
Of person, yeah,
because at the very beginning you think Edamura is like this really like
smooth
criminal,
yeah.
But little do we know that he ended up getting like reverse scammed when he was trying to scam another person, and then he realized he was kind of just like small time.
Yeah, and it's crazy too when you watch these scams that they pull off, and you see how much work is just put in. Like, all the characters that are included. Like, for instance, again, going back to that first scam that hit Edamura in the first episode, when like in the very first scene you see, right, he's scamming this old lady. Say basically goes to this old lady's house and he scams her into
Basically,
believing that like their water supply is polluted.
Is it?
It's very it's
very
super
dirty.
it's very
Yeah.
dirty, it's very polluted, and that like her house is at an acceptable pollution level, and the only way to get it 100% diluted so it's 100% safe to drink is if you buy this crazy water filter from him, which is just a normal water filter.
Yeah.
Right. And for him it's just like, oh man, he made off like a bandit. He sold this stupid old lady some crazy this simple water filter that you could buy anywhere, and he ran off with the money, only to find out much later that old lady was set up by Laurent.
Yeah, part of his cronies.
Yeah, part of his cronies,
And then
to reel him into joining his crew.
Slight spoiler: we get like the climax of that for when, because they, through a series of unfortunate events, they get themselves into where Edamura has to create the drug himself. So he spends like a week giving excuses to like prolong it and try to figure out how to make a fake drug that'll pass off, so they can buy it for like millions and millions of dollars. You get it? And so what we think is like the FBI finally cracking down on them. It's just another big ploy from Laurent, because he had another crew.
Yeah,
That's where we meet not Abigail. I keep saying
Cynthia.
that. Cynthia.
Where you meet Cynthia, and you also find out that all the FBI agents are, again, just people who are part of his crew.
Making it up, and they all split like over like 100 million together.
Between them, yeah. And it's just an insane, like, crazy suspenseful ride, and it's just fun to watch. And there are a lot of like wholesome moments throughout that too. Like, for instance, again, during that part, during that first like kind of arc, right? Adamora meets he's stuck with this bodyguard who you find out like his backstory, how part of the reason why he's part of the mafia or the gang is because he's trying to support his son after his wife has died, and that he and his son live apart because he doesn't want his son to see the life that his father is living.
And from there, we kind of see why they call him edamame, so I'm going to keep calling him edamame.
Okay.
And the reason why they call him edamame is because it's a joke. It's a play on his name,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because as a French person, if you try to say edamura, it sounds like edamume, and it sounds more like that.
But we find out why he's so sympathetic is because in his past, he lost his dad and grew up without his dad, who was framed for something he didn't commit.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we find out like Edamura isn't necessarily like the big criminal we think he is, or like he was portrayed as. Like, it was more so a matter of circumstance. Like, well, I got framed for doing something I didn't do, so I just have to do what's best for me, even if it's against my nature. But as time goes on with these actual like bona fide like con men, he tries to be the voice of reason and the moral compass, even though he doesn't necessarily have the biggest spine.
Yeah, or the best moral compass in the first place.
And when he tries to be in charge of the heist and like, don't tell Laurent. Think no one likes him. He just messes things up. It's Laurent who has to come in with his expertise and save the day.
Or typically it was his plan all along in the first place.
He's like, all right, do your thing. Don't call me. When times get rough, and he already knows what's going to happen. So it's that kind of cool dynamic. Like, there's a bit of Bebop and Lupin.
Yeah, if you like, and again, if you like
regard.
Cowboy Bebop and if you like Lupin Third, then you're gonna like Great Pretender. And
The only downside is that only half of it's out.
yeah, and
Netflix.
the next half of it won't be out till
The 24th.
Yeah, so
September.
Yep, up September, and it's definitely an anime that
Absolutely worth.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it, and it's definitely gonna be a classic, I'm sure.
It should be talked about. When around that time, the end of the year comes, and we start thinking about who was the best of the year for that. Like, it definitely needs to be brought up.
Okay.
I would consider that, as of right now, my anime of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. On the opposite end, another anime that's been talked a lot about.
Your favorite.
Well,
Rent a Girlfriend.
Ooh.
So,
I do want to hear from you, because I've been waiting for this.
Okay, so
You've been hinting at it.
Okay, so Rent a Girlfriend. The summary for Rent a Girlfriend is about a young man in college who, after a month with his girlfriend, she breaks up with him, and in his depression, he goes on to the Japanese iStore or App Store, and he downloads an app that allows him to rent out a girlfriend for a day. And essentially, it's just like paying a girl to pretend to be your girlfriend, right? And so he goes and he does that out of depression, and after he spends that day with that girl, he decides at the end of it that he doesn't like the fact that and he goes and he reads her reviews, like people, like, because you can put reviews about like what you think about your rented girlfriend out, and finds out that pretty much everything that all the acting that she did with him, she does with like all the other guys that that uses the service, and that really pisses him off. And he goes and he writes a bunch of about a bunch of like shitty things about her and posts a 1-star review. And because of that circumstance, like, he rents her out again, and in an effort to overturn that bad rating, she tries to put an effort into, actually, or put even more of an effort than she already did, which is crazy enough to think about, right? Like, she put more of an effort to attempt to pretend to be like a real girlfriend for him. And that's kind of, and from that point onwards, you find out the main character,
Kazuya.
Yeah, Kazuya is just...
He's very unlikable.
He's very unlikable.
I'll put it this way. This is an absolute cuck show.
Yeah.
Like, this is supposed to be like what not to do to get a GF and to become red-pilled, but I know people are going to be like, oh my god, that guy's just like me when you're not supposed to be like him.
The thing is that Kazuya... There are factors about Kazuya. The thing is, you look at Rent-a-Girlfriend and you think of the generic, harem romantic comedy out there, and the problem with Rent-a-Girlfriend is that Kazuya himself is just he's more pitiable than any other like main lead I've seen.
Yeah, and the weird thing is he has like this weird moral compass, because like the reason why he gets so mad at the Rent-a-Girlfriend Mizuha is that like, oh, I took you to the aquarium, but like you don't know anything about fish, blah blah blah. And when she does make the effort, he still isn't good enough for. He's like, oh man, this is just all so fake. But to her, it's like, hey, you paid for this. Yeah. This is my job. These reviews will
like
hurt
affect
me. So you better fucking suck it up and appreciate these fun fish facts I read for you.
And the thing is too about Kazuya. So what ends up happening is that. And at this point, you're probably asking yourselves, well, then why doesn't she just ditch him? Well, what ends up happening is that
like the whole show is her trying to constantly ditch him.
Yeah. And the thing is that he embroils her more into, and she's trying to keep this a secret. She's not, because can you imagine like in a situation like that, like if someone were to find out, and they go to the same college. They live right next to each other. Yeah, their grandmothers are best friends, and the thing is that he just constantly is lying about how
he's incredibly selfish about all this, because like we don't necessarily even know why she's being a rent-a-girlfriend. We just know that like it's important because she needs the money. Yeah, and the rates I've seen for most of the girls, it's pretty decently
expensive.
High.
Yeah,
it's like 120 for like an hour.
To
spend time with me, so I can like doll up and like look good for your grandma, because a lot of times she could have just said like fuck you, go away, but him and his selfish escapades, she feels bad not for him but for like the people he's bringing into this web of lies. And so that's really what's the most grating, because you think there's moments where you think he's going to get better about it, but he doesn't. He only just brings her in more and more, and that's where I'm kind of like at a standstill with this show, because like I really like Mizuha a lot. Like
like Misahara or Chizuru, right? Like the main female lead. She's very likable.
She's very likable. She's cute and everything.
Yeah, and she's a tsundere type character. In fact, she's
I wouldn't even necessarily say tsundere.
Yeah, or I guess that's what you would classify. Most people would classify her as in her role, right?
Only because like she has to be, because like this guy won't leave her alone. He's a fucking cuck. So it's like any self-respecting woman should be mean, or at least like firm.
Push him away.
That's what she's trying to be, but he's just like, just this last time, please. I'll pay. And that's another thing too. Like he comes from I don't want to say rich, but at least like decently well family, and he's supposed to take over for like the family sake shop, and he's going to school for business. At least that's what it seems like, because you see like some of his textbooks and whatnot. But he's just blowing it on this girl just because like he just cannot get over his first GF, and she fucking sucks, by the way.
Yeah,
she's just this manipulator. Like
she's a hate-sink character.
The one thing I will say, like, it's a very realistic depiction of like someone who's like really catty and like who tries to social engineer certain situations to like their liking. Like, oh, I'm gonna talk smack about you, but like in a kind of playful way. Like, oh, we're just joking. I didn't mean that. But she also has like this kind of second side to her that's like really manipulative and whatnot. So when he tries to woo her, because that's the main goal. He's initially, I'm trying to get my girl back.
Yeah,
and through Mizuhara, it kind of works, because she's just like, wow, he's with someone. Only I should be with someone. So she tries, thinking that that's an actual relationship. She's trying to get back at him.
And what the hell?
Yeah, she's trying to get back at him. Even that's what he wants, and that's what Mizuhara wants. She's like, good, leave me alone. Get back with your girlfriend, because clearly you're just so hung up on her. And like most of the time, another key point to him is that he spends a lot of his time jacking off to the thought of her.
That's another thing.
They don't like straight up show
Okay, I was just like, oh my god.
He's just like under the blanket and like tosses the
napkin. That's another thing about Kazuya that is very kind of unlikable. Is just, and the thing is unfortunately, it's a pretty realistic depiction for like most people of like his type of
a cuck.
Yeah. Like and the thing is that again he does berate himself at times for thinking this way, but like there's never an effort to try to stop. And sure, like the series, you can make the argument that yes, right now it's only like 8 or 9 episodes in at the moment. And that who knows how it's going to turn out in the next couple episodes or so, but he's
only gotten worse.
Yeah, he's
like
only
the most recent episode. He just stalks her because he thinks that she actually has a boyfriend, and at the time it kind of looks like it because he's only watching it before she's spending time with this other guy.
Yeah, and the way and he's getting only context, clues of what their conversation
more and
is.
More like invest in this relationship that clearly doesn't exist.
And the thing is too is that by this point in time he's developed feelings for Chizuru, but the issue is that he refuses to attempt to escalate it further, and it's totally understandable. His first girlfriend just kind of,
but like in true cuck fashion, he's gotten so much female attention, even if it was paid for. Like he can't handle it.
Yeah,
like this is a guy who everyone, even his own grandmother's like, "You never been good with girls. I'm so surprised you even have a girlfriend." Blah blah blah. It makes me so happy though that like you finally pulled it off.
And due to that pressure, he just keeps lying more and more about it, and it just makes him.
I feel so bad for her. That's the one thing. Like he himself really drags down the show, and really a lot of other contributing factors too. Like for starters, the pacing is kind of off.
Yeah, so
there's a lot of wasted time.
So I will say this too. Yeah, ironically, the anime is quite faster than the manga is. Mm-hmm. So, like, there is a lot of fluff that's been cut out, but at the same time, like, I understand what you're saying. So for me, who's read it, right, like, it's a lot faster, but I can understand for you why you feel like it's dragging in some places.
Yeah. I mean, either way, it sounds like it's a slog of, like, poorly used, like, screen time.
Yeah, and, the thing is unfortunately, I'm probably going to keep watching Rent-a-Girlfriend, right? Because for me, it's kind of like a train.
This is one of those things, like, if I wasn't doing this, I wouldn't watch it.
Yeah, and for it's like watching Domestic Girlfriend again.
Mizuhara helped,
except not as bad. Yeah,
at least they were super hot in Domestic Girlfriend.
True.
And Mizuhara, this is more so like, oh man, she's such like a genuinely like good person. I think she's a fantastic female character. It's so like I want to root for her to get away from him.
Yeah,
like I want her to be happy and not have him involved.
Yeah.
At least as like an anime only watcher, you know.
Just he said, like when you told me the synopsis at first, I was like, "What's this asshole doing? Like she did her job. Like why are you so pissed that she did the same thing? That's what you paid for. Like you saw what the service was, you paid it. She did the service. That's it.
Because
no, I get it. He's a
cuck.
Yeah, I'm just like, Jesus, what a fucking asshole. Like, I haven't watched it at all, but I see like the memes and stuff. But, oh boy, like just hearing more and more and how he just becomes like worse of a person. Like, I'm like, oh.
And you know what adds insult to injury? Like the one time he portrays himself as like having a spine and like finally becoming Chad Thundercock to his ex.
Okay.
He fucks it up.
Oh,
It's like,
my
wow,
God.
you know, you're sticking true to your guns and being faithful to your girlfriend, or at least who
Who
she thinks
who
is
she
girlfriend.
thinks
yeah.
is his girlfriend.
She like
yeah.
suddenly the respect meter goes up a bit, but then he goes out of his way to destroy it because he can't handle it. He can't handle the positive
'Cause
attention.
He's also very self-deprecating, and that in itself is already something I hate in these characters.
Yeah,
so
he's
much.
self-deprecating and selfish.
Just, yeah.
He sells fish.
Oh.
And usually, right, like for these harem protagonists, they're usually one or the other. They're usually self-deprecating or they're incredibly selfish. But
Yeah.
they're hardly ever both together. And
So
he
he's
is
just the
both.
cocktail
Yeah,
of,
yeah,
like,
and he's both together.
shit.
So every time he tries to do something that you want to appreciate, that you want to like congratulate him for being like the good guy for, you immediately remember what he did like 5 seconds ago, and then immediately what he does 5 seconds later. You're just like,
Yeah, and it's so funny because this show just finds a way to like mix in, like most of it is crap, but like it has these like little moments of brilliance, like the beach episode, who saw that
Hey.
coming, where you think they're finally gonna break it up because he's like, actually we were talking about breaking up,
and
Isn't
even that
right?
breakup scene
Yeah.
is terrible.
Well, not even that. I'm referring to the whole speech his homeboy Kibe
Yeah.
comes in. Like
Well,
that's a genuine good moment because like you could tell he's an actual bro.
yeah, that and
Like
then,
that's a really good moment because he's just like, you know, give him a chance. He's actually a really good guy. You know, I've known him for so long, since like kindergarten. He fails at a lot of things, but his perseverance is something that's, you know, I find admirable. So I think you guys should just make up.
I think it's even worse too because at the end of the episode, right, to compound on that, right, he saves her.
Yeah.
when she falls off. Of
So
the
like
ferry,
that's what I'm saying. Like there's these little moments, snippets of like
where you feel like he has some growth, and then
like
the next
it's
episode,
good, like good moments, and then he just like finds a way to like, oh me.
I mean, moving on to brighter things. How did you feel about the sound design, Base? Because I know that you.
Fucking sucked.
Because the
My
music
thing
is so
like,
weird.
The music is so odd. Like it's chip tunes, and then it's like chip
hell?
tunes of like classical songs,
yeah.
and then like one FAP session he gets into thinking about his ex. Fucking Sonic music starts to play.
You're kidding me.
No, it's like
Oh my
straight up
God.
butt rock.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious.
I don't know what this wants to be. It's funny because visually, like the little visual sight gags and all the like little commentary, like all that's super funny. Like when she kicks him in the bathhouse.
Yeah, and it's just
quarter
like it
circle
says
forward
no
kick.
fucking way, and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
the quarter circle forward kick like notation,
Uh-huh.
like stuff like that's really cool. And like you'll have all these little comments, almost like, you know, the little characters in
Kind of like
Cromartie,
in like
Oh, yeah.
like that, but a little more like serious and like a non sequitur.
Okay.
yeah.
The non sequitur. But I see what you're saying.
Stuff like that. But like in terms of sound, the soundtrack is everywhere, and I don't even the ending like doesn't do it. The ending and beginning don't do it any service because it's like, here are these other girls that you're not going to meet until like episode 7, and we haven't even met them all yet.
We've met 3 of them.
We met
out
3
of
of
the
them.
4, yeah. And right now, I guess we talked about the first 2. I guess we should talk a little bit about the third one.
What's your face?
She's this
Ruka.
Ruka is
Ruka.
yeah,
She's super cute.
yeah, she's very cute, and her backstory is given through the ending.
Which is actually done really well.
It's done very, very well.
Like it's all just like visual storytelling.
yeah,
Like,
and
the
essentially
like height of show don't tell is
Yeah.
that whole ending.
yeah, and that is probably like one of the best things in the anime so far.
And it's like you think like finally because she's looking for someone who like
Who can help her heart rate go up?
without. It's implied that she has like a heart condition, so
Oh,
she
okay,
can't
I was
get
just like,
excited or else she'll like have like issues. So
But she could get excited
having to
around him,
having
yeah.
to suppress that, like it's kind of like made her like emotionally nulled. So when she finally meets someone that can like do that and like bring in that genuine emotion without like literally dying, she's just so attached to them. That's why she goes, I've been looking for you my whole life. Like not necessarily Kazuya, but just the idea of that person. So it's a bit of like young unrequited love, but it's genuine and pure. But at the end of the day, it's still not good enough for Kazuya, which it pisses me off because she ends up being a rent-a-girlfriend too. But like her her motives were a bit different. We still don't know why Mizuhara is one. We just assume it's just purely money.
Well, they sort of touched on it in this last episode.
Kind of
right?
like she's an
She's
she's
an
going
actress,
to school for acting,
and she's using the money to pay for the acting.
So
school.
we assume she's like on her own.
Yeah.
But like with Ruka, it's a little more clear. Like, I'm looking for someone. And what better way to meet guys, especially in like a Japanese kind of context, than to like have them rent me out, and I could kind of find it from there. And so she like pours her heart and soul, and she's like super clingy, and like this is, and as a viewer, you're like, this is exactly what you wanted, Kazuya. Take it.
But the problem
she's
is
super cute. She's super into you, and that's exactly what you wanted.
Except the thing is that at this point he's in love with Chizuru.
Yeah,
but he refuses, and Chizuru has promised him that she'll help him find a real girlfriend, and so in this situation, he wants to tell her that he likes her, but he hasn't done it yet. And so when Ruka comes along, Chizuru manages to convince him to give Ruka a try.
She's like literally crying in the middle of the street.
She's crying in the middle of the street. Yeah, and so Kazuya's attempts. I say attempt, but it's not really much of an attempt at this point. And it's just so hard to like him as a character. And the main character, even if they're like dull and boring, like
even if that's the point it could still be a turn off. Looking at you, ReZero. Looking at you.
And in turn, it just ruins the whole thing.
But unlike ReZero, whereas like that show, the girls or whatever, like I really do like Mizuhara. I'm really hoping you get rid of this guy.
Yeah.
It's like a tale of like, you hear about the bad dates or the bad boyfriends who like don't get the picture and whatnot. This is almost like getting an unsolicited dick pic, but like expanded into a story. You're just like, leave me alone, go away. But of course, he's just not socially aware enough, or he doesn't have the emotional maturity to get the picture. So in that regard, oh man, Mizuhara, like everything she wears, she just looks so good. And she's also just like a genuinely good person. So it sucks to see her in this shitty situation.
Yeah, it does.
So at least in that regard, I'm like looking forward to like hopefully seeing her survive and escape this hellhole that Kazuya's made.
They're gonna end up together at the end. That's just kind of how these things go.
Yeah, I mean, if not, cool. But
I just want to see what the ending is going to be like.
There's better shows. There's better shows that have like been there, done that. This isn't necessarily anything special. It's popular because it's new.
Speaking of like shows that been there, done that better, Oregairu Season 3, my teen romantic comedy snafu. That is a show that does this better. I haven't had a chance to watch Season 3 yet.
I was like, wait, how do you know if it's better if you haven't watched it?
Well, I mean, I bring it up because Seasons 1 and Seasons 2 are essentially like, that's like a rom-com or like a romantic comedy that you...
Yeah, because, I mean, this is a rom-com.
Yeah.
It's just got a really shitty main character.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily mean shitty as in, like, he's poorly developed. He's just developed in a way that he's a shitty person.
Yeah.
And for all you youngsters, impressionable young people watching this, everything he does,
you shouldn't do.
Don't do it. Don't be a cuck. Be a Chad. Respect women. Know your boundaries. And no means no. Funny enough, like the show is painful, but it's gotten the most like emotion out of me.
Yeah. Ironically enough, in a season of pretty decent amount of shows, this is probably the one that's gotten the most emotion out of me too. Even if it's like negative overall.
Just anger.
Yeah.
Well, it's like a feeling of like protection and like self-defense. And I'm like, look at this bad man, even though he's obviously like some scrawny kid. Though it is kind of funny I say that because like his little fist fight with Kibe is done really well. Like they're legitimately like going at each other. It's not like yeah because Kibe calls him out for being a fucking cuck. And I'm like, yes, he's logged into my mind. He's hacked me. And he throws like a legitimate punch. But then Kazuya does the same thing, and they're going back and forth. They're like, oh, shit, these guys are fighting. Like, this is for real. This is real life.
This is real life.
Kibe's a Chad. If he ends up with Mizuhara, best show, 10 out of 10. We'll buy
ultimate swerve.
We'll buy everything Rent a Girlfriend ever. Though if there's Mizuhara products, I'm in there. I'm talking like mats, talking play sleeves.
Oh, there will be.
I'm sure there
I'm
will.
talking notebooks.
Notebook.
I'm talking pocket protectors. Talking pens. I want it all.
Charms.
Gonna get some of those dividers with
those
it.
like what were they called?
The paper protector.
What were those really crazy like colorful like notebooks that had like the trippy rainbow colors and like the unicorns?
Oh,
and shit?
yeah.
Wow,
blast from the past.
I don't know.
Lisa Frank?
What
was it? That brand?
Something like that. Yeah,
they're just notebooks to me. I
almost
don't know
said
what
Lisa
you're talking.
and the other.
No.
Not that one. Like shit like that. Like give it to me.
Okay, yeah. Just,
Pencil boxes.
He'll take it all.
I want it.
All right, Yaron.
Yuka's cute too. I want stuff of her as well.
Yeah. What else?
Anything else, or is
No,
that?
there's still stuff.
Yeah, there are a couple
You
other
want me
things.
to pick another one?
Well, since we were speaking about waifus, how about we talk about another show that had a lot of waifus to it, and that would be Dokyu Sentai.
Oh, HxEros.
Yep.
So this, I remember seeing the promotional image for it and like the synopsis. And basically, there are these like alien type creatures called Kisechu that are invading Earth, and they're stealing like.
Okay, so in short, what these aliens do is that if you feel horny, they take
it away.
Yeah, they take away your horniness.
They kind of make you dull. Like you don't want to do anything in life. There's like, I'll just live a boring life. So there's a team, multiple teams in different areas called HxEros.
Yeah, they use their horniness to kill these monsters.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
What they call just H energy or just energy.
Yeah, they call it H energy. So and the story revolves around the two main characters. One of them is this girl who I guess was like a super horny 7 or 8 year old girl that got her like H energy taken when they were kids, and so so the boy, shit man, I can't remember any of their names. Yeah,
so Reto is the MC. Basically, when they were hanging out when they were younger, they were childhood love it. They loved each other, and then Kisechu came in and like he was like, oh no, and then like he protected her because she's like the super like. Go-getter, kind of, and just protected him, and she got energy taken.
Yeah, the thing is that he was just so afraid that she went out in front to protect him, and so after that incident of her horny energy being taken away, basically, she became like a different person, and since then, he's the stereotypical plot line of, oh, I can never forgive myself for not being able to protect you, so from that point forward, he joins the Dokyu Sentai HxEros,
which obviously is a play on Super Sentai.
And so I'm just gonna be upfront about this. This series is basically on the same level as Interspecies Reviewers when it comes to borderline hentai, because when they attack with their H energy, their clothes explode.
Yeah, like they use so much of it at once. They all just pops off.
Yeah, if you're watching this series, you're probably not watching it for the storyline. More than likely, you're probably watching it for the immense amounts of fan service for both the male and female characters. Because even for male characters, the main character Reto, his uncle is another like just super ripped swimmer like body dude in like literally like nothing, but
like athletic, wearing a lab coat.
Yeah, with a lab coat. Yeah, and the series is just them just getting stripped every time they fight monsters.
Yeah, if you watch the story, you're just gonna be pissed. Because like I talked with Yara and I was like, man, this main character is pissing me off. Like, she's not who you love anymore, bro. Like, she's an asshole now. Like, she just hates dudes. Stop wasting your time. You have other girls, because they all live in the same like house.
Yeah,
the team.
For context, the female lead, Kirara,
just Hoshino.
Yeah, Hoshino. At the beginning of the story, the whole first like 2 episodes is about recruiting her into the group, because she has so much H energy, I guess, that even though they took it when she was a kid, she still has like a ton more, and so they want her to help them basically beat the Kisechu that are sucking out the horny from people. And so with it just comes to all the hijinks of
Of one guy and multiple chicks.
one
living
guy,
in a
multiple
house.
chicks, lucky pervert incident, and she's the typical like violent, extremely violent tsundere who will beat him for any reason given. Yeah,
and there's no dare. It's all soon.
yeah.
Like, cause I don't mind tsunderes, but she pisses me off. Like, there's not enough dare to
There's not good enough
to make
balance.
you like her.
Yeah,
Like,
there's not good enough balance.
for like, if you love her appearance, cool. She's obviously like a good looking character, but like personality wise, oh my god, it's just compared to the rest of the team, she's super unlikable.
Yeah, and the series is very average.
Yeah,
Like, there's no other way to put it, right? Like it does have like it has a all-star Seiyu cast, so all the voice actors and voice actresses for the series, they're all really famous Japanese voice actors, voice actresses. So like if you're into that, maybe you'll watch this show. But other than that, like,
Yeah, if you're not watching for the ecchi, then you're wasting your time.
yeah. And they've already announced that there's going to be an uncensored version coming out at some point.
Fuck, at this point, it's almost
Entirely
yeah.
uncensored, anyways. Though the censoring's pretty hilarious because it's just like this the Studio Trigger explosion stars, like the bright like cross light, it's starlights, and they just put those over like the nipples and like his penis
Private
at some
parts,
point.
yeah.
And it's, I mean, like it has funny moments. It has some great like at one point. What ends up happening is that one of the aliens, the Kiseichu, joins their crew, and what it does is it fuses with Rato, the main lead, and when it does that, it goes around causing sexual hijinks for him, basically.
to get his energy up.
To get his energy up. Because, by the way, that's how they get their energy up, is by...
horniness.
It's horniness.
Basically,
yeah. The hornier they get, the stronger they get. And that's the entire show, essentially.
If only that were real life.
Oof.
Right.
Maybe a lot of people superheroes, yeah.
Like, there's just not much else to say.
Yeah, it's just very whatever. There's also that, if you want to talk about that.
Oh, I guess if we're gonna talk about sexual things, I mean,
Go on.
I can't even.
It's not really sexual.
Yeah, it's not even sexual, but it's a huge controversy about it being sexual.
Oh.
Is
Uzaki-chan.
Uzaki-chan wants to have fun.
Yep.
There's a huge controversy about the
is
show.
so stupid.
Yeah.
She's got big tits, and if you're mad at that, I hope you stay eternally mad.
Yeah.
People are gonna flip when they meet her mom. People are going to start rioting over this big titty bitch.
So Uzaki-chan's it's not my type of romantic comedy. I read a little bit of the manga and I just didn't enjoy it overall. But like Base over here said, right, that people are gonna freak out when they see Uzaki's mom. And the show itself it's funny. It's got its romantic comedy. The main lead, he's a pretty decent main lead for a romantic comedy like this. He's funny in himself. He just wants to be left alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Uzaki's whole thing is that
she's like the annoying
tag along character who just thinks that he wants more than he actually does, and so it's
almost like the reverse of Rent a Girlfriend. But not nearly as like egregious.
Yeah,
it's more so just like teehee.
Yeah, and Uzaki's
really annoyed. And he's like, "OMG, get away."
Yeah, and Uzaki's really only doing it because, she's doing it because she feels like she owes him a favor from when they were in high school.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the more
wholesome version of Rent a Girlfriend. Basically.
Well, that and the more exaggerated version of what's the forehead girl anime?
Forehead
girl?
Just B-boy laughing.
The one where it's like she teases the other kid.
Sorry, I hella popped off there. I'm sorry.
Teasing Master Takagi-san.
Yeah,
there you go. I hella popped off. I'm sorry.
I was like, the girl with the big forehead.
Big forehead.
It's like an over-exaggerated version of that. Like, it really is harmless, but apparently because she's got huge tits, they're like,
she just said she's short.
I've got to redesign her. Twitter,
aside,
Tumblr, here I come.
So people are like, short girls can't have big tits. What the fuck?
Oh man, those tweets are great because then everyone's like, look at this. And I'm like, nice on.
You're like, congratulations.
But outside of that, like, it's harmless. It's fine.
She's a moe blob. She does.
I wouldn't even necessarily say watch it, but if you had to choose between this and Rent a Girlfriend, watch this. Even though
this is a lot more wholesome fun.
I like Mizuhara like way more. But
way more.
Uzaki's fine. I just don't like her little like flesh thing.
Yeah, that's so odd. That it's done like that.
Yeah.
She had some like dental surgery mishap where like a tooth growing out of like her regular row teeth went into her lip, and they're like, "Fuck it, there you go." Learn to eat with it.
It's odd, but it doesn't deserve all the bullshit
Yeah,
it's getting at all.
Like it's a fun show. It's not the best romantic comedy to come out this year.
If you're actually getting like hurt in a tizzy over this, well, don't watch it. Stay mad. Just you're not doing yourself or anyone else favors by here's the redesign. I fixed it for you. Like no one asked that. You're making the Western fan base look bad.
Yeah, it's true.
But I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's all been said and done. That's where I'm gonna leave this at. Mm-hmm. It's fine. It'll probably be fine at the end when we review the rest of when summer's all said and done.
Yeah.
It's harmless. It's nothing special, though.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of shows that are special, I think we should talk about Decadence.
Yeah.
Decadence is...
I went into this very blind. I only knew the name, and I knew it was on Funimation.
By the way, massive spoilers for Decadence. If you haven't watched past the first episode, basically.
It pops off that hard.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily that it's like boom, bam, body slam. It's just like...
There's a huge twist to the story.
Or rather, there's a huge part, too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
basically, it takes place in the super far future of like the 2400s, where Earth is all messed up and like it's inhabitable. So man creates they say cyborgs, but
they're basically androids.
Android cyborgs, like they have like biomechanics to them. Anywho, they're in charge of humanity because humanity can't govern themselves. But then the cyborgs essentially like. It's alluded that there's multiple companies, but the one we're watching over is called Solid Quake. And they have the patent, or rather the rights to humanity, which is pretty crazy, I know. So they basically like they basically have this part of the Earth where they keep humanity in, and also the kind of, how would you describe them, like cyborg people?
So the basic plot for Decadence is that the company Solid Quake took all of humanity and made a game, kind of like a weird isekai game, where
it's like an MMO.
Yeah, it's like
an
MMO
for
where
like
you
the cyborg people.
Yeah, for the cyborg people, and you basically control a character
it's like
that
Avatar.
Protects the
humans.
Yeah, the humans. And
it's in this like moving fortress. Called,
yeah.
The game and the fortress are called Deca-dence.
Deca-dence, yeah.
And they're fighting these monsters. What were they called again?
They're called the. I can't remember.
What are they called? Basically, like
the
gal something, the Galdo, the Galdot,
the Galgaga. We're talking Yu-Gi-Oh now.
Basically, these monsters like they harvest their blood to like fuel the machines,
to fuel the robots.
And like it's got sort of an Attack on Titan spin to it, to where like they use like the enemy's blood, almost like Monster Hunter, like using the parts of the beast to fight the beast. Because when they're in danger, they create these like anti-gravity fields, and they have these backpacks that like help them move around. And the only way they can beat them is if they like hit their like vital organs and then drain the blood, which is called like oxidone,
the oxy-1,
oxycone.
And so the big twist here is that the humans don't know that this is going on,
because from episode 1 it's like this young girl. I'm gonna look at the names because I keep forgetting all of them.
So basically how it works is that Decadence is split into like two different parts. And so there's the top part of Decadence, which is dedicated to the gears, which are like the human avatars for like these androids who download themselves into these bodies to fight the monsters. And on the bottom portion, which is the endangered species, the humans, right? They're called like the tankers because they take care of the Decadence. Like
main character's called Natsume, by the way. That's her name.
Okay. Yeah, and Natsume, the main character, or her whole goal in life is, or what she wants to do is that she wants to join the fighting force that fights off these monsters. And that's what they spend the entire first episode on. And so she meets and what ends up happening is that all the humans, they immediately get distributed to like different jobs.
Like harvest food. You work on the mechanics,
manufacturing, and stuff like that. There is like a small little like faction of humans that help the the android PCs or whatever. They're called like the Power, or basically their version of the army.
Yeah.
And she wants to join that, but she can't because she lost an arm earlier in her life when.
So she has like this prosthetic,
she
almost
got
like
this
Full Metal
prosthetic,
Alchemist
yeah.
chainmail.
Yeah, and the first episode is
Automail, whatever.
yeah, the first episode is all about how like she got distributed to like to working on the steel plates on the outside of the Decadence, and she meets her like boss there, and how eventually at the end of the episode you find out that her boss was like one of these like legendary like army soldiers, and that he says that he'll teach her how to fight. Only to go to the next episode to find out that this guy is just a
He's like quality control for the mega corporation.
yeah, for the mega corporation.
Because he's actually like a little cyborg.
Yeah, he's
man
actually
too.
a little android guy controlling a human body.
Yeah, controlling.
at the bottom,
It's like
yeah.
reverse Matrix.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, in the Matrix, Zion was the last bastion of humanity. That's kind of like what the Decadence looks like, sort of. It's all mechanical and distraught. And the Matrix was where you wanted to escape. It's kind of the reverse. So whereas, like, in the digital world where the cyborgs reside, that's like the upper echelon.
Yeah, and
It's kind of have that Gurren Lagann sort of feel, like those who live beneath have to like fight the monsters and use what they can take, and those above, you know, are superior.
yeah, and to the androids, it's just a game to them, right? Whereas for the humans, it's life or death. Because to them, they think
like,
that
the AI, the head of Solid Quake, like we got to keep these people entertained because they can't govern themselves. They drove humanity almost to the brink of extinction.
yeah.
So it's got like two parallel stories with very different art styles. Like, if you ever seen the Yuasa series Kaiba,
Oh yeah, it's very very similar when it comes
it's
to
kind
like,
of hard to
art
explain.
styles,
It's very
yeah.
poppy, like almost
Yeah.
like comic
Because like
pop
with the
kind of art.
with the humans, it's a very like subdued color palette. Like a lot of grays, a lot of grays, a lot of like dark colors and stuff like that. It's not very
Like,
bright.
The cyborgs, it's like poppy, like super like
bubblegum pop,
rainbowy.
kind of like panty
Yeah.
and stocking type colors
Yeah.
everywhere. Yeah,
So it's a story of like Natsume trying to work her way up into the fighting force and to eventually beat the monsters. But to our what was his name again?
Kaburagi.
He knows what's going to happen because he's basically like the end game like NPC. Like, he has to keep the game going the way it's always gone to meet the status quo, because people who act outside the game are considered bugs.
Yeah, and the thing is
And
that the whole
Solid Quake's whole thing is like everything has to be like perfect order. There can't be anything out of the norm.
and the whole story basically kicks off because he decides that he wants to see where like these deviations in the story goes, or
But
like yeah.
As time goes on, he realizes that like it's our differences that like make life worth living, rather than being this kind of like
Same
sanitary living, because he knows that they can't win the game, because to them they're like, this is, you know, our last hope. We got to go to the monster nest and defeat them all. But really, this is like us playing Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah.
Like, we know how it's scripted and whatnot, but to him, he's like, you know, we got to change this. Like, this isn't the way we should live. Like, they don't even know what's going on. And Natsume, as time goes on, she becomes a better fighter and starts to become more aware. Like, that's kind of her awakening. But instead of leaving the Matrix into the real world, she's like in the fake world, learning about it being manufactured by like it's the reverse Matrix.
Whew, damn.
It's got a lot of like influences. Like, there's a bit, like I said, the Matrix. There's a bit of Gurren Lagann,
So a little bit of Attack on Titan.
a little bit of Attack on Titan, but like it works really well, and especially as like one of the few like anime originals of this season. I really like it. Like, it's a bit, I don't want to say slow, but like it's the right, like it's very methodical.
Yeah.
My only gripe is that I kind of wish like the stuff revealed in episode 2 was revealed sooner, because you find out more about the world very sparsed out. Like episode 2, you find out like, oh, these are actually like game navies, and then like further on you find out about like how Solid Quake was made and what their goal is.
And right now the series isn't completed yet, but
It's like at episode 9.
Yeah, it's only got a couple episodes left, so depending on how it sticks its landing, you know.
I think it'll get another season. I could see it.
Either it'll get another season, or hopefully the ending will be just solid enough that, you know, we can...
I would say if it weren't for the other like bombastic contenders, like if this came out any other season, it would be like super high talked about.
Yeah.
At least I would hope so, because like conceptually it's probably my favorite, but then it has to compete with like God of Highschool
And Great Pretender.
Yeah, not to say that it's any less. It just like it has competition.
Yeah, and those shows definitely have a lot more hype behind them than, say, this show.
Yeah, it's like when Titanfall 2 tried to come out at the same time, like Battlefield and Call of Duty came out. I'm like, whew, tall order.
Worst time.
Tall freaking order. So there was another game that came out like when Smash Ultimate was coming out.
Oh, I know what you mean.
It's like that. Maybe not as lopsided,
Uh-huh.
because again, like its other contemporaries don't necessarily outshine it. Like this is way better than Rent a Girlfriend. You're gonna get a lot more from watching this show than Rent a Girlfriend.
Yeah.
This seems like the main point of this episode.
You're
Don't
just
watch
like-
Rent a Girlfriend.
You're just like, but there's no cute girls. Objection. Kurenai is fucking hot as shit.
She is,
and
yes.
she's like the main like military like leader. And there's a ton of good female characters, like genuinely good female characters. I like that. Kishimoto, take notes. But I really like the dynamic because like you get to watch her Natsume grow, and she's trying to become like this bona fide fighter and discover more about the world, and hopefully to her defeat the monsters and finally like find some sense of like normalcy or something outside of like living in the last like bastion of humanity. Whereas you kind of have to watch Kaburagi grow more of like a parental sort of relationship, and he's just like, oh man, if only you knew. Towards the end though, he does get caught, and so it towards right now it's more like a high. So he's like, that's it. I'm not going to live life as this. He doesn't want to be an agent. Like he doesn't want to be Agent Smith anymore. Basically,
And
he wants to like help humanity live its life. Their own ways. The exact opposite of what Solid Quake wants. So you kind of see him like in this heist of gathering the other like rejects, the other bugs, to try to destroy the monster plant
Try
and
to
like
rise
end the
up.
game. Whereas like the enemy Solid Quake is trying to keep the game like in normalcy. Like that didn't happen. That was just game maintenance, stuff like that. I think it's interesting. Like I'm glad I went into this blind, because I really had no idea what to expect. I just heard the name. Like people kept I heard that name more than the other like bigger names of the past seasons. So it was a nice treat. I do hope it gets the love and attention it deserves.
yeah, and
It's a fascinating take, and it uses its influences very well.
from there, are there any other shows in the summer season that you guys wanted to talk about?
Not off the top of my head, but at some point we'll return and talk about other stuff we may have missed. Which there's a handful of stuff.
Yeah, there's some stuff I know I want to actually watch, like the Misfit at Demon King. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the Misfit at Demon King Academy. So
Yeah.
I have watched a little bit about that. It's kind of like One Punch Man, except with like a Demon King.
Yeah, he's like an edgelord.
Yeah, an edgelord character, because he was the Demon King in the past, and after telling the hero that, you know what, you guys will never beat me, but if you guys do beat me, you guys can bring peace to the world, so I'll pretend that you guys beat me and kill myself and revive in 1,000 years. And of course he revives in 1,000 years, and he is just this really, really OP character who just like one-shots everyone. In like almost that same vein. It's very much so one of those like power fantasy anime where like, you just watch the main character just kind of rock everyone, right?
Yep.
And with his like harem building and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's nothing too like it's nothing I would say is like extraordinary, but I know a lot of people have been talking about it.
Yeah, just with the absurdness of like his overpoweredness.
Yeah.
So I've been meaning to watch that. I haven't gotten around to it. Also, the one with I also don't know the name. I think it's on Funimation. The guy who's like a hero and he's like trying to preserve himself, but he ends up sleeping with like these. Like,
Peter Grill.
I thought you were gonna say Peter Griffin.
Peter Griffin anime.
I mean, everyone.
Family Guy moments
Everyone
one.
says that. Yeah, it's like Peter Grill.
Makes a mistake. Gets laid. I don't know. I only heard the synopsis of like basically he's trying to like keep himself pure. And
So
then
okay,
fucks up.
so the synopsis for this one is that Peter Grill is in love with this girl who is the captain of his like Night Legion or whatever, and and the two of them have promised to marry each other. The problem is that this girl's super pure and she doesn't know where babies come from. So she thinks that babies are dropped off by storks and stuff like that. And so they've never done anything. They've never even held hands in the 2 years that they've been together. But what ends up happening is that Peter Girl wins this like tournament, and after winning the tournament, what ends up happening is that a bunch of monster girls decide that they want his junk. You know, they want.
I was like, how's he gonna finish this sentence?
Yeah, they want the
D.
Yeah, they want the. It's like they want all of the. They want all the stuff. They want all of his junk juice. They want all of his junk juice.
I was like, how are you gonna finish?
Bro,
produce strong offspring.
Just say come.
Just say sperm,
We're so
bro.
far in the
I don't
video.
know why you're so going out of your way.
Be
I'm
be
tired,
sure
man.
to be sure to mark these videos as like 18 above. By the way.
Yeah, at this point, it's very early in the morning, and I'm pretty tired at this point. So
just see you try to
Fucking
describe
say jizz, come, jankum even.
jug juice.
but yeah, essentially all these monster girls are just going in to try to impregnate themselves, and essentially each episode he ends up fucking some type of monster girl.
Oh, great! I've been meaning to watch that too.
Because his whole thing
It
is
seems
that,
funny.
Yeah, his whole thing is just that. Oh man, I'll save my virginity, and then he just ends up fucking all these monster girls. Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah, I'll. So eventually, when we talk about this season, we'll come back, like we said, and like give our final thoughts on the summer season and like the fall season.
Yeah.
Oh boy, is there anything else in the summer, or is that
I think
like
that's
I'll
it
be
for
I
now.
think that's pretty much it.
We'll return, and if during our like end of season review, if we want to add anything, we'll do that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Yep.
Be nice to us in the comments, or be mean. Just be honest. That's all I ask.
All I'll say is that the format for this episode is going to be definitely be vastly different from what future episodes are going to look like, and pretty much what will happen is like our first episodes of the month will be the general like anime review for like whatever is going on during that season, and then the next episode after that will be kind of just random topics that we have.
At the end of the day, it's just a couple of friends trying to express their opinions and views to internet strangers and hopefully internet friends. So hopefully you guys can take away something from this, even if it's to compare your own opinion with ours. Because that's the kind of discussion I like and see, because that's kind of like my goal, and hopefully we can expand upon that.
Yep, and if you don't like our podcast, we'll also have like dumb shit in between each podcast that you guys will be able to watch every week.
There's a lot
as
of
well.
stuff in the works that we're trying to do individually or with like in pairs or that sort of thing.
But yeah, if you're somehow, for some reason, a fan of this, like,
It's hella selling ourselves
subscribe,
short.
click the bell.
my
I
God.
can't guarantee when we're going to have a set schedule, but hopefully it won't be too long. So hang with us. We'll get that figured out.
Yeah, everything's starting out, so we're gonna
So,
get our bearings. Hopefully
With
soon.
that, I think we're all done here.
Yep, and we're gonna sign off with me, Kiara.
Base.
And Galder, do y'all have a good rest of your day?
Remember, Kazuya's a fucking cuck.